All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the show. This is last week's fight. My name is Thinker St. James, and tonight we are going over each and every fight from UFC Fight Night, Della Maddalena versus Prates, taking a look at and giving our predictions for UFC 328, Chimaev versus Strickland. And to do all of that with me, as always, the man, myth, and legend, the Ohio player, a man who could probably have as good a record as Tai Tuivasa in the UFC, Mr. Chase Parton. How the hell are you, brother?
I am very, very good. For the record, I don't think I could have as good, maybe a similar loss streak, let me say it that way. But no, absolutely, I'm good. I'm happy to be here. This is a very, very exciting day. Saturday happened. It's now Monday, of course. We get to talk about fights. Very, very
We had
happy.
had a whole bunch of them down there in Australia. Had to be up very early for this card. How was the waking up at 3 or 4 or whenever you woke up in the morning there, Chase?
It's actually interesting because if you guys, if you're out there and you didn't know, Thinker was streaming late night. He was up late streaming because that BKFC, right? That's what the
Uh,
Game Bread FC.
Game bred bare knuckle. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That went a lot later than anticipated. So I was up with you for a little bit, and I had you, I had you on my, I was coughing, sleeping kind of deal, and I relatively woke up easily. Sometimes I just have the moment where the alarm hits me, and I just like wake. I do the Undertaker shit, and I'm just like I can't, I don't know. I was good. It was good. What about
Yeah, same. Yeah, no, I was gonna say this was a tremendously easy one, surprisingly for me. My sleep schedule has been kind of all over the place lately. I'm doing a bunch of watch alongs, so those are always kind of at various times. But this one, yeah, going from Game Bred FC, Game Bred Bare Knuckle, directly into this, almost, I think it was like a 3 or 3.5 hour gap, something like that. I think I ended up getting about 2 hours sleep in between
yeah?
and something along those lines or whatever, somewhere there about. But either way, I woke up really refreshed. I felt really good, got right into the card, and had a great time with this card. So of course we'll talk all about that. I mean, I guess were there any other cards that you watched this week that you wanted to talk about? I'll talk about Game Bread a little bit.
I think we watched one. There was some good stuff as always, but nothing really to note. Of course, we have to have a day one time where we get more in depth to our one ventures, but that day is not today, of course. But go on with Game
For
Bread,
sure.
of course.
Well, yeah. Before I even get into that, I do at least want to also touch on one because it's crazy to think how quickly these weeks move. But earlier in the week was the big One Samurai event that I was also on in the middle of the night for. And let me tell you, One Championship or One Samurai One was quite the event out there in Japan. It was a lot of fun, but it was very long.
Let me say this, and this goes to the point. Yeah, we did need to touch on One Samurai, and the one thing that I have to note about it is all of the people out there. Shout out to the chat real quick. We'll get into you, but you guys are at fault here. Thinker, you too. You guys did not let me know that Shimon fought on that One Samurai card,
Oh
and
boy.
I wasn't feeling good, and I had to just take that one off. I'm sorry, but Shimon, if you are ever out there, brother, I missed it, and I'm sorry, but I heard it was the best. It was awesome.
It was great. Shimon versus Jojo Ghazali was a great one. All of four title fights on the card, all of which were great. I mean, it was a really impressive event. It was one of those ones where the lesser fights were still really decent fights, and it's like on any other card they would have been like pretty okay as a mainstay sort of fight, but because the overall quality of the card was so good, it just dropped those down just that little bit. But overall, it was such a worthwhile endeavor to watch that event. Really good showing for One Championship out there in Japan.
It's funny when you say like all the fights were good, all of them were great. It sounds like a pay-per-view. That's outstanding. It sounds like it lived up to being an event that you would have to pay $40 for or whatever. So I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We can't say that about everything.
For
Can't say
sure,
that.
yeah, absolutely. No, definitely worth, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. It does like highlight the discrepancy in quality levels sometimes because we're all very happy that we're not paying for fights all the time now, at least with the UFC and certain other promotions. But there's a trade off with that, right?
Yeah, no four title fights. We
Yeah.
we were supposed to have six in the White House, and here we are. So
Yeah, indeed. So, but yeah, no, shout out to everybody who fought on One Samurai. It was certainly a great time watching that. And then, of course, as we mentioned, Gamebred FC was in the opposite direction of that. I would say it was kind of ramshackle, sort of slapped together. It felt like a little bit. They're still trying to figure out what's going on at Gamebred. It feels like, they had kind of a good thing going there for a while, and then they took about a year long gap off. They just came back with that Dominican Republic card. A week or two ago, something like that, maybe a couple weeks ago now. But that card was pretty good in the Dominican Republic. This one was in Miami, and there were certainly elements that were lacking, I would say.
And I'm actually, when you talked about this promotion, when I was thinking about a warehouse that this probably was in, it actually reminded me. Meat Rocky, you're totally right. We do need to speak about the karate combat situation,
Sure.
not necessarily anything in the whole. Maybe the Pacheco situation too, but at first we'll talk about Wing C, of course. Actually, there's three different things at karate combat we could talk about. So we'll go ahead. We'll talk about Wing C, of course. The blind man walking into the pit, which after further investigation is clearly a PR stunt for the promotion to get clicks and stuff. That was clearly set up by Dana Brown himself. So I don't know. I don't know if I love it. But the referee. I know you made a great point, but like the referee, bro, you're supposed to be protecting the fighters also. Like, you got to stop this dude. I know he's not doing anything, but like, bro, get him up out of the fucking pit. Shove his ass up out of
No,
there.
yeah.
Like,
You make a great point with it. It's like, at the end of the day, there is fighter protection that kind of is
like
first and foremost and paramount, right?
what if that was actually like an angry fan? Like what?
Right.
Nobody gave a shit. Nobody seemed to give a
Yeah,
frick.
for
Like,
those of you who don't know what we're talking about, like during the Karate Combat event last Saturday, Wing C, who's this meme fighter that has been in the promotion once and has fought elsewhere, just basically entered the fighting area in the pit and just sort of was kind of bouncing around like he was imitating a blind person and just making a spectacle of himself. And yeah, I mean, if like what I've gone back and forth about like what I think is to the promotional, if it was a stunt kind of thing. Because on the one hand, if it was, then that is a tremendously dangerous thing for the promotion to be involved with. And if it's not, it shows a lack of forethought as far as the security of their promotions go. So either way, this is a very bad look for Karate Combat, in my opinion.
well, the point is this stunt led to a backstage brawl of some sort, quote unquote. We don't know exactly what happens here, but anyway, the point is that the in ring antics led to an outside altercation, which potentially is going to bring lawyers and lawsuits. Where you don't even want to bring them anywhere near karate combat, brother. Those crypto bros, are
Jesus.
you serious? Like,
Yo.
anyway, aside from that point, and then you get to the Pitbull brothers situation, where they had came out and said that karate combat was telling opposing fighters to like spray their wives with water guns or
Yeah,
something like
another
that.
prank situation. Yeah, the Pitbull brothers said. I mean, and this is their word about it, but yeah, they're saying that this was another publicity prank situation where they were going to be targeted by like water guns or whatever, but they don't know that necessarily, and they're fighters. I mean, they're not going to react good to that.
But the point is that stunt also led to an outside of the venue altercation that led to a street brawl type of thing with multiple people, even fucking Coach Polino, that he was involved in, quote unquote involved. But and that was after the face off where they had a brawl and then Patricky got a cut and then the fight was called off. So this is a whole layer of things that are going on here, and this is yeah, like the two incidents with the publicity stunts kind of deal with it, because this was on Saturday night, you have to remember, so everybody's watching the UFC in the middle of the day. They're still catching up on the fights. The people who are waking up and not waking up in the morning, they're trying to watch the fights, but they get on social media every time and they see something stupid that's going on at karate combat. So that was really the whole gimmick here.
Well,
But
and
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, no, I just want because like you make a great point with that, and it really leads to my ultimate point about all of this is that like what this shout out to John Dong, who when we were talking about this on the RWS, those Muay Thai Sundays that we do, we talked about this a little bit, and what he says is that this is very much indicative of like the TikTokification of of karate combat in this case, but just in general, the TikTokification of everything, where it's just all viral clips, outlandish publicity stunts, clout farming, aura farming, whatever, all that kind of shit. What I say to that is that what they will find out very quickly is that not all publicity is good publicity. That is a myth. And I say that to say, I watch Moist Critical somewhat regularly, and he very often covers these nuisance TikTokers, these people that go out and do public nuisance stuff for clips and whatnot. And a lot of them are now getting arrested, and a lot of them are being charged with certain crimes based on what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying that it will necessarily get to that point with Karate Combat, but A, you're ruining your public perception as far as a reputable organization goes. And then B, should you continue down this path, it very well could get to that point. And you want to be trying to be taken seriously, at least to some extent, when it comes to, if you want to be Fight Circus, go be Fight Circus. You know what I mean? Like, they're already a thing where you can be what you're trying to be. You're walking a very fine line, and when you go too far in one direction, you can't come back from it.
I just think it's really key to note that these led to scuffles, and I do believe potential lawyers are going to come into play, and this is going to stop the crossover for the UFC fighters to compete and like the grappling submission series or whatever they have going there, because the UFC ain't gonna want to deal with them fucking shits going on. What if that was one of their guys? Pitbull was there. Like what's gonna happen with that? He was with his brother. So is the UFC going to be involved in any way, when it comes to lawyers and shit going on here? I
No,
don't
yeah,
know.
that's another very good point. I mean, this fight world is very interconnected and a lot smaller than it seems. I mean, you're right. We see UFC fighters at these events, occasionally competing in the submission grappling, those types of things. The closer that you get to that, the closer that you get to the legal arm of that company.
So it's funny too. There was a somebody was making us. They were taking screenshots of the scuffle itself with the Pitbull brothers, and a Contender Series guy was also, because he's probably in the group with them or whatever. But
Sure.
he was in that as well too. So, and he ain't even made his debut yet. So what's going on with him now?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, you see people wearing UFC branding in some of these videos. I remember Wing C in the hotel lobby, like some dude is in a UFC rash guard. So, I mean,
Nice.
it's like you're playing with fire in multiple different ways right now. And if you think that's, I think the ultimate point to me is that if you think that this is helping you in the big picture, you are going to get a serious reality check sooner than later. Yes, you are going to get a lot of eyes on your product. Not all of that is going to be positive, and eventually it's going to be having majorly negative repercussions. They're not happening right now, but you're planting the seeds for later.
Yeah, the last thing they want is Cash Patel watching their fucking product, because if he starts asking questions, he might get some. Well, I know he don't do his fucking job, but somebody might actually get something done at Karate Combat because, brother, with the crypto stuff, the all up, the all whatever the Brendan Allen coin that they got, the all up or whatever it is, it's a sham. It's a sham.
Oh,
I'm telling
well,
you guys.
that aspect, it's funny that you mentioned that specifically too, because throughout all of this, at one point, I rewatched the video that I did, just kind of playing it in the background just to hear what I had said about Karate Combat. I did a video about that maybe a month ago or so, and all of the stuff that I said in that video is all still very relevant. Fighters not getting paid, a lot of rumors about shady dealings, those types of things. And I talked about the only up or up only whatever the crypto element of things. And you look at the chart of that coin, it is in the toilet. I mean, there's no value to it whatsoever at all. And so if you think that these fighters are getting paid with that as any kind of incentive, like none of this bodes well. This is all a very shoddy foundation to be building a promotion on. And then this on top of it, all the stuff that we just talked about.
Which and this is actually a really good segue into the last, viral moment that Karate Combat had. So Larissa Pacheco, she gets a viral knockout.
Oh, already? Yeah. Yeah. You're,
Larissa Pacheco had a viral knockout, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the thing, when speaking about fighters not getting paid or not getting what their dues, yeah, that's all well. We need to get that figured out. But I think in some navigational way, if Larissa Pacheco is like, I'm using this as a stepping stone to get to the UFC, like. I don't really give a fuck what happens here. I'll just go beat the hell out of this random kickboxing champ. She's not gonna make it 2 minutes with me. I mean, it's no sweat off me. I'll get millions of fake crypto. I'll head my ass to the UFC because now I got millions of views. They see that I can make 135. That was the whole goal, to see if she can make 135. She did it. And then she gets this amazing tomahawk elbow to the back of this girl's head while she's walking away. I loved
Well,
it. I'm not
I
gonna lie, guys, I loved it.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I mean, what we have come to find out, yes, the girl that Larissa Pacheco was fighting, Larissa Pacheco, who is the only woman to beat Kayla Harrison in a fight, by the way. The woman that she was fighting is apparently a kickboxing champion, but my question is, who gave belt, brother? I mean, like, what promotion is this? They have it listed out in some of the Instagram reels, but I'm like, not necessarily one that is super immediately recognizable. Somebody said that it was like adjacent to K1. I'm like, well, and it ain't K1 then.
Mhm.
But so she and if you look at the body language of this girl as she's getting this knockout, which was the elbow very close to the back of the head, she's basically like turning her body away and like walking away from the fight. This was not how a professional fighter handles a combat situation. I mean, like, very infrequently would you ever see an aware fighter taking the damage that she already had taken and then responding that way to further, further attacks. So this just seemed like, we talk a lot about karate combat basically setting fighters up with very easy matches if you are a known fighter. If you are a fighter who has any kind of name outside of their organization, they will find you a rando to go in there and prop your record up. Looks like Pacheco got that same treatment, and I feel bad for that girl who was in that position because she certainly shouldn't have been there. It looked like.
Yeah, I mean, let's be all thankful that Chase did not get the call from Karate Combat to go against Crazy Kev because the fight wouldn't have happened. They would have had me go against some crazy fucking guy and he would have whooped my ass probably. So
True.
I'm cool with it. Yeah.
Indeed. So, a lot going on at Karate Combat for sure. This is the exact kind of stuff that I'm hoping to be able to have more time to make videos about in the near future. So, keep an eye out for those, perhaps.
Yeah, but what we need to do, absolutely, before we get into anything else, the chat. The
Have to.
chat, the fucking chat. Okay, so 10-7, Meat Rocket, Notorious Viet, Meat Rocket again, of course, 10-7, one more time. John Dong, Jeremy Hall, Johnny the God, CC, CCSY, love it. I missed a letter there, but anyway, Bleeding Edge, and yeah, love you guys. You guys are awesome. I think Hydra and Michael are out there somewhere.
Excellent. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, awesome to talk about Karate Combat a little bit, even if it's not such an awesome subject as to why. That being said, though, I mean, really not too much else to talk about with Game Bread and all that. So you want to just jump into UFC?
I think it's time to talk about UFC, man. I know everybody's very excited to get into this.
And there is so much with this card to talk about, so let's do just that. Of course, we are talking about UFC Fight Night, Della Maddalena versus Prates. This took place at the RAC Arena down there in Perth, Western Australia. First of all, I've said it the last time that we did a card in this arena because this is a regular arena for them in Perth. This arena, man, it is massive, and it is a kind of a really cool place to me to see an event because it's like the same way that you see like more standardized like gymnasium style venues where it's like one big section that just goes all the way up to the roof. It's that on a crazy scale. So I mean, like, there are no like tiers to this arena. It is just big staircase that goes all the way back all around, and like I really like the RAC arena down there in Perth, man.
It's a nice one. The aerial shots are always good when we go to the land down under or whatever. The main thing that I do want to bring up on the podcast, but guys, I think it's really funny when if you guys caught my episode of the Street Word, which you guys should, it's a great show. A lot of the clips that we were watching, and even clips that you see on Twitter, of other people and like they did not think that there was much to do in Perth. Even Tai Tuivasa, they were like, "So how's the nightlife? Are you ready to go party? And even Tai Tuivasa's like, well, there ain't much to do. And like even they just posted a clip of Tai Tuivasa and JDM. They're just in like some hotel room. It's like, what the fuck? I mean,
Oh yeah. Well, what I noticed about that, I think I talked about it on the watch along. During the event, they played a promo for Western Australia, and it was like Volk and I think a couple other fighters, maybe, but Volk specifically, and they were doing the dune buggy thing and like sand surfing. And I was like, look, that's cool. And if you want to do that, no offense to you or anything, but if sand surfing is the biggest draw that you have to your region, perhaps the rumors about there not being much to do are somewhat warranted.
yeah, true. I guess you can only drive a dune buggy so many times. I mean, like,
You gotta really love being out there in the desert, bro.
yeah, hell yeah, I love it.
Well, we did have some fights though, so let's talk about those. Starting off with the first fight of the evening, which to me turned out to be a very good. Well, actually, no. I mean, we didn't even talk about what we thought about this card on paper before. Jesus Christ, I'm forgetting my own format here. Chase, what did you think of this card on paper?
On paper, this was a pretty solid one. I mean, for the ones that we normally get for Australia, I feel like last year the general consensus was Australia has no good fighters. Like what is this, you know? But this go around, I'm my mind's not changed necessarily too much outside of like two fighters kind of deal. But this was a very good card on paper, I thought. I thought this had a lot of things that were adding up to be good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I certainly thought that this was a great showcase of some of the existing Australian and New Zealand talent, and then some of the upcoming talent, which it was. I mean, we definitely got to see a variety of skill sets and where everybody is at their various stages. So for those reasons, I think it was definitely good. There were some, like any card, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it certainly had all of those things. And yeah, I guess we'll just talk it all through and point all of that out. But yeah, on paper, I was pretty excited about this. Wasn't super excited about the 4 o'clock in the morning aspect of it, but I was happy that it was in the native time zone of the place where the fight took place, because we had the Manchester card not too long ago that was taking place on the American time schedule in England. I thought that was very disrespectful to the local crowd, so I was very happy for this local crowd that they got it, in a time frame that made sense to them.
No, I definitely agree. I can't tell you how unbelievably pissed I would be if I knew there was a UFC event in my region and it was at 4 o'clock in my morning. Like I had to get out and drive somewhere that no fucking way, you know. Like
Yeah.
so I am very happy for them. And all in all, it wasn't even that bad of an experience to get up at that time. It came and went. To be fair, I didn't know my days were all mixed up for a little bit. I thought yesterday was Monday. I was really fucked up after I woke up. But all's good. I liked it.
Indeed. Yeah. And, once you get back into the swing of things, all is well. So, now, that being said, let's talk about some of these fights here. Starting off with the first fight of the evening, Dom Marfan versus Cody Steele. I thought that this was a tremendous way to start this card off. We talk about the highs and lows, the peaks and valleys of cards. This is one that started off very high and then maybe dipped a little bit and then kind of went back up towards the end. So, the chart of this one was a little bit different than we sometimes get, but this to start it off, what a performance from Cody Steele here.
No, absolutely. I this fight as quick it actually felt a lot quicker than the time would make it believe. Cody Steele actually had a lot of time to work here because we saw a lot of good grappling. And when I say good grappling, and I'm not just listen, I said this in the chat multiple times, but I'm serious, guys. This guy might be related to Horiguchi. Look at him in the face 3 more times and tell me that you don't think so. But when you see the grappling, I mean, it must be genetic. Obviously that's a little farther down the, stereotypical lane. But this dude here is very, very good at grappling. And it's not just good grappling. Oh, it's like aggressive, threatening, dangerous grappling. When you see people do an Imanari roll, it's like, oh yeah, they're cooked, bro. What are you even doing? And then they get their head beat in or something. But Cody Steele was able to pull this off, and I'll do a lot of different positions from his back that you don't normally see. I unfortunately now this is not to discredit Cody. I swear, Don Marfan. A lot of people were a little high on him, like, oh, he's only lost once, and it was to Quill and Salkind. Guys, Cody Steele's that fucking guy. When we talked about the predictions, I said very confidently, Cody Steele's going to go in here, choke him out. Like it's no contest. And what's funny that I say that is like when you look at Cody Steele's record, he's not that much of a submission guy, but from what I remember and what I've seen, he will get you down and get where he wants to fucking
Well,
go. And he did just that. Go ahead.
that's what I was going to say is that the biggest difference here, based on what we've seen from Cody Steele, is that if you recall in the Rongju fight, Rongju and him went to war with the hands because that was the type of fight that it had to be. I mean, Cody Steele has a defined skill set, but he wasn't able to do all of the things that you were seeing in a fight like this because Rongju is also that guy. This fight right here was exactly where he wanted to be. This was meeting him at his level, and you put him into a comfort zone, you get exactly a performance like this. Felder on commentary made me laugh. Don Marfan likes to back himself up purposefully. Oh, well, maybe he shouldn't, considering what you saw here, because Steele gets the early takedown, easy work off of that, does some nice work on the top. Marfan might get the reversal, they turn it into the scramble, but Cody is so comfortable in all of this that he's just working through position to position to position. He ends up finally grabbing the leg, getting that extension, and then he's in that position, like you said, off of his back. I mean, this was off of his shoulders, really,
Mhm.
when he ended up getting the position for the sub. And it was like, bro, to be able to have the wherewithal to do what he did. It was somebody else on the card, I believe, that was talking about, or it might have actually been him. I don't remember, but he was saying that, that's high level stuff that was that came down in this fight. I was like, that fucking tracks. I mean, that was a really, really great move. They were pretzeled up for a minute. He's able to navigate all of that, ends up in the knee bar / heel hook, maybe toe hold, whatever it ended up being with all of that. But this was exactly what you can get out of a guy like this when you're fighting a Don Marfan, who I also referenced the predictions when you said, Cody Steele is that dude and Don Marfan is the guy who beat the dude on Road to UFC. I mean, that's, and it was a close fight at that. I think that it all tracked really, really perfectly. And this is the outcome that you get out of that.
No, this Cody Steele guy, in my opinion, I think this was just, you say it often. There's Contender Series Part 2. I think this was kind of leading towards that. Like I think personally, they kind of gave Cody Steele a free win on Don Marfan. Like they were hopeful that like, oh, he would pull out a big win. But guys, I mean, Cody Steele he's looking like he's gonna be one of the next big prospects. I mean, I'm honestly, we haven't seen him fight in so long. He's gonna have to step it up when it comes to activity. But he is 8-1. We got, obviously this is the part where he's supposed to pick it up. He's got the most eyes on him. So I like Cody Steele, man. This dude's very talented.
Yeah, no, and I also noted that, as you'd said on the predictions, that, he does need to pick up the activity a little bit, but now they're still giving the juice. And honestly, bro, I was looking over our fight tracker for the year. We only have one other sub of the year currently on, in contention. I think that this qualifies at least for a mention. I'm not saying it's going to win it. We got a lot more year to go, but I put it on the list because I was like, if you really look at the way that this all went down and the position that he was in to get it, I mean, this was a really, really quality one. It was quick, it was a quick tap, but that's because of how good the work was.
I really, this is one of a few times, and you guys are gonna think I'm kidding, but I'll bring it up. This is one of the few times on this card where I said we got Hoist Gracie back in here, man. He made it back, No, but Cody Steele, no, it really is the ability to aggressively hunt a submission without having to start it up by striking and getting them on the ground, where they're compromised already. Cody Steele was able to just make shit happen. And that's just not something you normally see with jiu-jitsu anymore. It's obviously becoming something that's very nullified. Like even bro, they were when they were on the ground, they're like, Don Morfam's comfortable here. This is where he thrives. He's a black belt, whatever the fuck they said. But at the end of the day, Cody Steele, he wherever the fuck he came from, I don't fucking know, but they did some good grappling over there. If there is a promotion, they kept saying this is combat jujitsu. This is a new term that I've been throwing around when Cody Steele comes in here. I don't know what it is, but I'd really like to see it because if he does this, I'm sold.
I think Uriah Faber does that over there in A1 every once in a
Mm.
while, that combat jujitsu. But either way, the nice thing about Cody Steele, though, is seeing a performance like this, based on the Rongju fight, the guy's got hands too. It might not be, world class, high caliber, whatever. But if he gets into a firefight, he will hold his own in that. And he can do what he did here. So, I mean, that signals a pretty well rounded fighter to me. And he's a young guy, too. So he's got plenty of time to improve. I like Cody Steele.
I absolutely do too. This is a good one. Pretty good fight to start.
Definitely a good fight to start it off. Well, that takes us into our next fight then, which I thought was not as good, to be perfectly honest. We had a really good fight to start, and my first note for this was this fight kind of sucked a little bit. This is, of course, Jonathan Mikhailov versus Temba Garimbo. I mean, this early in this fight, you're starting to see what you were kind of getting out of both of these guys. Mikhailov eventually will turn this around a little bit towards the end and start picking up the pace. But that was the big note throughout a lot of this was Mikhailov just looked kind of uncomfortable in this fight. He looked a little out of sorts, which is kind of strange because he is the hometown fighter. But pitter patter shots from Garimbo made him look active, but not really damaging at all. It was a very even first round, second round, maybe a little bit more so one way or the other. But like you didn't see a lot of anybody really like taking over this fight until the third round. And even in that point, I said Mikhailov was kind of clunky with that striking, even in the third.
What I want to say, and this might be Cope, but he won, so it really doesn't matter to me. Split decision is a little, if you want to give Timba round one, sure, that's fine. But Jonathan McAuliffe, before this fight started, I said everybody needs to be on watch. Obviously this isn't my own watch along, so I didn't tell you this, but I'm going to stand on business here, and I'm going to give it a good wraparound. I said Jonathan McAuliffe is somebody who is not as hyped or as popular as someone like Quillen Salkill, but I think the potential, the ceiling is just as high. He just hasn't reached it. He's obviously not there yet. He's just a prospect. Everybody has a different path. Some have to work a little harder. I think this is a good learning experience for Jonathan McAuliffe because I came in here and I thought he was going to get a finish. Timba Grimbo's not. Listen, he got finished by Luque, brother. Whatever you want to say. Jonathan McAuliffe has all these skills. Well, first round was close. I think he took it. Judges did too, of course. But in worst case scenario, Timbo gets it. Split decision, whatever. But second round was the tell. That was the story here because he completely threw away the entire second round. He laid on his back for the entire second round. And I
Took
have no
himself
idea
down.
what. Yeah, I and like it's baffling to me how bad of a second round he had because when you get to the third round, he's tired. Of course, they're both tired. It's a fight. We're 10 minutes into it or whatever. But he genuinely looked like he wanted to win a fight. He's like, okay, can't go to the ground now because if I do, the fucking fight's over. He was able to overcome stuff. He was almost even able to finish him. I didn't think, at the state that he was in, he came into this just a little too confident that he was going to make light work of him because he clearly wasn't in shape for the performance that he got. That second round, mentally, he just gave it away, and then third round, thankfully he got it, split decision once again, thankfully. But I'm gonna say that this is just a really good learning experience. I'm still putting stock in Jonathan McAuliffe. I think it's there for him for real.
Fair enough. I mean, to be perfectly honest, and especially on rewatch, because I felt this way in the moment. And sometimes, I try to be as honest as possible with my initial thoughts and my rewatches, most especially with the rewatches, because I have the benefit of hindsight. This fight to me seemed like a petty theft, honestly. I thought that Garimbo took the first round just off of that just slightly little bit of more activity. And yeah, I mean, McAuliffe had one good crack in a takedown attempt or a takedown with no sub attempt in that first round. That was really all of his output. He was just inactive throughout a lot of this fight up until that third round. That self takedown in the second round was like, a fight IQ blunder. And I mean, it was just, the striking in the third round was kind of clunky to me, even though he did take that round. So it's like, in the moment I even said, I was like, I thought McAuliffe's corner was crazy thinking this was 1-1 going into the third. They turned out to be correct. That's fine. But like, when McAuliffe is in the when they're in the announcement portion of things and he's looking at the camera screw facing and saying that was not a split decision fight, I'm like, brother, you need to go back and like really, if you're like what you're saying, Chase, if it's a learning experience, he really does need to sit down and take a good long look at this fight and take stock of it, because thinking that this was not a well-deserved split decision with that okay ass performance was like, bro, you got another thing coming here.
I think he came in very cocky, confident. I think he just has that, I don't know. That's the vibe that I got from him. He's a guy who's has a skill set. He can finish people, He's always done that. Why would he not think he can do that to the next guy? I don't blame him. But I think again, in a way, you get a little humbled that Timba Garimbo, the guy who's Duke, I won't say some bad words about him. He's not that good. Um, you went to split decision with him, so you really got to up the ante. Come in here with a little more respect for your opponent. Even if Tim Garimbo isn't all that on the feet, he was still able to take you down, and you laid underneath him for 10 or 5 minutes or whatever. Anybody else in the division, if they get that opportunity, I mean, they're going to win the round and they potentially are going to finish you. So, and I don't know if that's necessarily true of welterweight off the top of my head, but in theory, that's the way that it goes. If Timbo Garimbo can do it, the next guy up in the division is going to be able to.
I
So
mean, we're not even talking about anywhere near a number yet. And I mean, you're already potentially having problems. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And of course, we have been talking about McAuliffe a lot in this fight. So, I do want to acknowledge Johnny the God's question. Do you think that The Rock is going to evict Temba Garimbo from that house that he bought him because of this?
I don't even want to get into it because I really have still so many questions about that story. But yeah, weird. Dwayne, thanks for buying him a house, I think.
Yeah, I hope we talked about a lot of publicity stunts with Karate Combat earlier. I hope that that publicity stunt really helped the Smashing Machine.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I mean, Temba Garimbo, I think that you made a great point on the predictions. Kind of harmless. He certainly showed that in this fight. That was why Mikhailov was able to turn up in that third round. That's also why I think it was so easy for the judges to not go his way, even though I do think that he did enough to win this fight. If you really are going down digging deep, I'm not mad about this petty theft because you need to win the fight. You can't just skate by on hoping that you did enough, and we know how much the optics play in this. So yeah, Mikhailov really, if you want to be a bigger player in the most competitive division in the sport right now, you need to take a look at this and really self-assess.
Yeah, I mean, the skills are there. It's really a mental thing. The confidence was just a little too overshot. I think that the necessary adjustments is all that I'm saying, and he'll
Sure.
be fine.
That's fine. And, I will keep all of that in mind for his next fight, and we'll see who he gets paired up with. But, we never forget. It always goes right back in the back of our minds here.
Yeah, Timba Garimbo, man, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
split decision indeed. All right, good deal. Let's talk about this one. Oh, brother. Well, I mean, we're talking about the highs and lows of this card. I said fight of the year, Ben Johnston versus Wes Schultz. I mean, this, you want to talk about those one long round fights. This was one long series of some of the sloppiest wrestling grappling that you've seen, paired with some very bad decision making on both sides at times, but definitely especially for Johnston. Of course, Johnston is a dude who is coming in from outside, basically fresh off the street kind of thing, it would seem. Apparently, he had a big layoff as well. So, coming back to the sport after a time off. Wes Schultz, we've talked about him several times at this point. Not necessarily a guy who we think has the highest of ceilings, perhaps. This turned out to be almost a bizarre, like, we talk about fights that are like bad fights. I didn't think that this was a bad fight. This was like a bizarre fight. There's some like that. I like the same way that I class Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig, where it's like, is it a great fight? No, it's definitely not, but it's just weird to watch. Like, you're sitting there, you're like, what is happening in this fight exactly? Like, what am I actually seeing here?
It's interesting you bring it up because there's too many things to talk about with this fight. Because I do agree with you. This is by far one of the worst mixed martial artist bouts that you will ever see. But in knowing there's two things. In knowing the sport, when you watch it, you're just amazed that so many mistakes and so many unorthodox things could be done that you cannot, you have to see what he's going to do next kind of deal when it comes down to it. Also, I mean, if you know who Wes Schultz is, again, this guy doesn't offer too much. But again, you have to just witness like what this dude does, because once again, he puts on, and I know you were clowning what I was going to say in your chat. I heard it. I hear everything. I'm going to talk about the masterclass of Wes Schultz
Let's
because
go.
it truly is. This is a prime Wes Schultz performance because at heart he is a jujitsu nerd. At heart he is a jujitsu nerd. He pulls guard. He goes for Imanari rolls, and he looks for subs that he's probably never going to get. And what's funny about Wes Schultz too is like he is a finisher. He is a finish or be finished guy. And you know how he just doesn't even train to go to the belt. Like when you see him outside of the first round after doing nothing but lay on his back, he gets up, he's like huffing and puffing, looking for his corner. After the second round, he lays there for a little longer. But when you get to this third round, you get prime Wes Schultz, where nothing is going right, but the opponent has to be so dumb to continue. Look at the stats. 5 sub attempts. It was more like 7 to 8 different guillotines that he was going for.
Oh yeah.
And then he continued to let him go for it. But it's just an absolute Wes Schultz performance to do nothing right. To do nothing right but to win, and nobody has anything to say. I mean, again, this is the Ben Johnston. People were trying. I think Lachlan, if you're here, I'm sorry. I'm trying to put you on blast. He came in and he was like, Ben Johnson's legit, man. And when I'm watching this, I'm like, this is the legit. This is the guy that's legit, bro. I wanted to make the point too. If this guy was so good, they would not be like, "Oh yeah, he's good for his age." Like, he's good for no, they would be like, "Bro, he's the fucking man. Like
Oh
this kid's
yeah.
fucking good," you know?
Well,
Like,
but I mean, if he was coming in anywhere during round one, there's a case to be made because Johnston ran shit in round one. He just came in and just tackled Wes Schultz.
yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, now granted, BJJ guy maybe first and foremost, but wrestler as well, from what I understood, or at least what I thought that I knew about him. He's the Wrestle King over here. He's just on the ground for a long time. And then this dude, Johnston, actually did have some decent chain wrestling. So I was like, this might legitimately be going his way. If he can just keep this up, then no problem. And then incrementally throughout the course of the fight, he just seems to lose all fight IQ. This was also helped dramatically by the fact that Schultz ends up taking himself down. You thought Mikhailov took himself down. This, I don't think I've ever seen a self takedown quite like this. I mean, Schultz, he like at one point gets back to his feet and then just he put his arms around Johnston's neck and just fell backwards. This, like I said, this was not a mistake. This was an intentional falling to the ground and dragging your opponent down on top of you. I said that's a tremendous. That's either like galaxy brain IQ or the worst I've ever seen.
No, it actually is. I truly, and I know I hate on Wes Schultz, but I've come around to get it, you know? In a way, you look at Yuri and you don't understand what he's doing. Wes Schultz, he's kinda like Ryan Hall, where he's the grapple guy. His thing is to get you to the grappling, but he'll act like he's got a little karate on the feet, you know? He'll throw some spin kicks that look atrocious. He'll throw some kicks, he'll do some cool stuff. He'll throw the wildest punches that you've ever seen, but his game is to just get close enough where he can just fall down and you have to grapple with him because Wes Schultz, and I truly believe this because from the little that I've seen with the Suliev stretch, he's aggressive with the subs and he knows what he's doing, bro. Like he is a good grappler. So when people were telling me Ben Johnston is legit, like I get it. But if he gets to the ground, which this fight went to the ground and he was very confident, and I think this is a prime example of Wes Schultz had him right where he wanted him. He was too confident to engage with the grappling. No, but the second round started and Wes Schultz lands a fucking knee to the chin that drops Ben Johnson, and it's just like you would think, oh my god, Wes Schultz is going to win, but no, he's an idiot. So the fight continues to go on 10 times longer than it should have, and he eventually just finds the way. And finish or be finished in a way it worked out. People talk about Nate Diaz, brother. He got whooped 10 times worse than what this is, and he would come back. This wasn't even that bad of a whooping, but Wes Schultz still pulled it out. I'm thinking this dude's kind of on something here, guys.
It's hard to say based on this, but I mean, I thought that because you talked about the knee out of round one, I was like, there is a case to be made that was a 10-8 round. Like Schultz did literally nothing but survive and help Johnston with the self takedown. So I'm like, what is he going to be able to pull off in the second round? And you're right. Second round, magical knee. It just came out of nowhere. He just finds this knee. I'm like, this guy Wes Schultz, has a an angel on his shoulder over here. Apparently, he's got a 4-leaf clover over there.
You know who he fights like? Well, not fights like, but you know who he gives me? He reminds me of the Pleasure Man, of
True.
Tartan
Yes.
Lau.
Yeah.
This guy, just absolute the craziest things that you could think to happen in a fight, they just happen for him. You have Cody Brundage, but Wes Schultz party time. This guy, he's something to behold. As I think about it, like I do this fight right here. I really think he was building his confidence. He
Well,
got him all the way to the end.
so I mean, again, fair that he found this submission, but it cannot be understated how much Johnston helped him in that endeavor. Because, like you said, he's fishing for subs, and it was multiple guillotine attempts that Johnston would get out of and then immediately re-enter. This was a fight IQ like extravaganza over here of just consistent position loss and then retaking by handshake agreement. Like, okay, hey, dude, good attempt on that one. You gotta, you couldn't get it that time. Here, let's do it again. Let's try it one more time. It kept happening over and over in that third round. It's like, brother, if you put your neck into his arms multiple times, one of them is going to work. I suppose, it wasn't super close to the end of the fight, but it felt like he was really like trying to, be like, okay, like I'm going to allow you to have all of the different versions of this. And I mean, I guess maybe you could say he was just playing with fire and wanted to show that he could get out of it multiple times like Houdini, but obviously, Houdini, you are not. So, I mean, finally, that guillotine does work. And congratulations, Wes, you still suck.
I hate to break it to you, and I'm being so serious because if you think about and the context is everything. This is a huge deficit at the time. He's losing every single round, arguably 10-8 in the first. All he's done is throw up Hail Mary guillotines that have not worked. But then in the third round, I mean, think about how often do you see a third round submission? You know, we obviously talk about the honorable mention with the buzzer beater with Wicklax, right? And
Yes.
Gaffarov, yes.
Hmm.
Um, but this one, I'm telling you, at the end of the year, I'll bring this one back up for you because it really it jujitsu works, guys. I really don't know what to tell you. At the end of the day, jujitsu works because he was able to choke him out, you know,
Yeah,
and it's actually
when your opponent allows for it, jujitsu certainly works.
That that's the case sometimes.
Of
That's the
course.
case, you know, but
No, you
no,
make a good point.
I think what's funny though, at the end of this fight, Ben Johnston, you know, when the camera's panning on him and he's like, you know, he's down on one knee, he has this look on his face like, man, I gave it my all, you know, I'm real happy. And I kind of felt it because like, yo, he is 35, he's 5-2 now, you know, but like he went out there and gave it his all. You know, the old man really came in here and was hanging around with him, you know.
Sure.
So I actually do want to give him major props. As funny as this fight was, it is memorable for so many reasons. But Ben Johnson, for real, appreciate you for stepping out there, man. You had a dream, and it from what they were saying, it wasn't looking likely, but you got the call, and they gave Wes Schultz an opportunity coming off of L on his debut. So shout
Yeah.
out to him, man.
Well, you know, fair enough on the Johnston side. What I would say about Wes Schultz, I had this in the notes, is that, you know, when people say, everybody doubted me and look at me now, I'm the doubter. Like right here, this is who is doubting right now. So you have to actually actively give reasons for people to not doubt anymore. It's not enough to have a handshake agreement win by guillotine where your opponent gives you his neck multiple times and you just take it. Go out there and actually like make something legitimately happen for yourself, and then maybe that perception changes, because right now the doubt remains. So, you know, I'm just saying, like, this is, yeah, you got the win here coming off of the knockout loss, like you had said. This is definitely a better trajectory perhaps, but having watched this fight, you know the reality, you know the boots on the ground.
Yeah, but the thing is I think in a way he could end up being like your Cutelaba. Like, you know, like if you give him time, he might lose a few, but if you keep him under contract, that sixth fight, you give him somebody just that has so much hype that has no idea what they're doing. And obviously, Ben Johnson's not that, but an Omar C kind of dude, he'll figure it out, brother. He'll make him look stupid. He'll make him look stupid. Torres Finney versus Wes Schultz. Book it right now.
Oh
Book it
my
right now.
good lord. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you say give him time. I guess we're gonna give him party time. But you know, we'll see. I mean, he stays around, so we will see what they do with him next, because you know, a performance like that certainly deserves a step up, I would say.
He is gonna end up being like, and not to say that he is that, but even if he does lose and lose and lose, he will be like your Medina who gets an extra couple fights just to keep losing. Like, come on, you gotta give it. You got the lowest hanging fruit right here. And Wes Schultz was able to pull it out, you know. So shout out to
All
him.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if he can get a little bit of a cult following, then maybe he ends up like other people on the card and stays around way longer than he needs to, you know?
I totally think he's got a cult following. This is the second time on the card where I thought Hoist Gracie had come back, brother.
Oh,
Like,
Jesus Christ. All right. Well, he's got a fan in you apparently. So then that's certainly a start.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one here. This, of course, is Colby Thickness versus Vince Morales. You know, I said, I mean, now granted, it was a lot in round one, but that first round was really, really good for Colby Thickness. You know, started to change a little bit over the course of this thing, but I thought that this was possibly the best that we've seen Thickness look in round one specifically. Vince, of course, showing that he is a veteran. Over the course of this fight, I did think that things changed, and this is a fight that has a perception from some people that I don't agree with. So I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on this one.
What's the perception?
That Vince didn't win this fight by taking the second 2 rounds. I mean, like I thought this round. So specifically, it comes down to round 2. Vince definitely took round 3. He wobbles thickness. He fumbled the finish, which is really Vince's fault that he didn't get this finish. But round 2 is really the point of contention here because I thought that Morales did the better work. He was cutting off the cage nicely. He was landing more strikes, at least more impactful strikes. I think the numbers had it up for thickness, but we know how these numbers like to fudge things a little bit. The striking it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough volume on either side necessarily, but I think people are thinking the thickness won round 2 off of aura alone. He didn't land as much with impact, and he did not secure the takedown that he was going for. So to me, that's Vince Morales' round. He was the way, even if they're not the craziest shots, he was still landing more consistently, and he defended the takedown. Does that not then equal a win of the round? I don't know. People are saying that they thought thickness won that second round. I thought Vince won 2 and 3.
I will break it down how I saw it, but I will initially tell you that I disagree.
Okay.
I think Kobe won this fight. I think hands down, I think Kobe won this fight, and that is because Vince Morales is allergic to doing anything fucking good at, I guess. Like he's good. No, I actually really like this fight. Even after this fight, I went to the Topps Discord and I said, "Yo, show me the Vince Morales. Show me the autograph. I need to see it now." Vince Morales is a super fun fighter. Third round, we'll definitely talk about, but the first round, no. Kobe looked very great. Very good. Nothing really to say. He was on fire. Vince Morales is walking forward and, he's doing this push the pace kind of deal. And he's throwing a bunch of strikes that they're fast, they look good, but they're not impactful at all. Like this was the lightest I've ever seen him punch for some reason. Like
True.
he had nothing up until the third, which we'll talk about, which was
Right.
why it was so fucking weird. So first round he loses. Kobe looks really good on the counters. They're fucking glazing him like, oh, no, look at him. He trains with Volkanovski, doesn't he? Like, brother, shut the fuck up.
I'm
Like,
so sick of hearing that.
so he's out here. He's doing good. Looks good. Second round, I still do not think Vince Morales took this round. Colby, again, outside striking looked very, very good. He played a consistent fight. He played the fight that he knew that he could win here, and obviously it almost bit him in the butt towards the end of the fight. But the point is, first and second round, I thought he was doing a little coasting. I thought Vince was just walking forward into a bunch of counter strikes. He was doing the whole pop, 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 pop. But again, where was the power here? I don't know what was the deal with the power. It just did not look like he even had remotely anything in his arms. The submissions too were fucking crazy. You're talking about he didn't win round 2. He almost choked him out in round 2, did he not?
I thought that was round 1. I don't think he got a. Did he throw? He threw up a. No, he that was round 2 where he defended the takedown. All
Uh,
that was round 1, man. I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Round 1, it cannot be overstated how good thickness looked in round 1. I mean, round 1 was tremendous round for him, and like I said, this was
so
probably the best that
potential
we looked.
10-8. I mean, yes.
I mean, if you want to go that far, maybe, but I mean, that debatable on that
Okay.
part of it. I'm not saying that this is a robbery. This is definitely
Mhm.
not a robbery to me. I'm just saying that, like, if my more of my point is this really does illustrate the optics of the sport because it's like people were saying that thickness took that round so convincingly, and I'm like, it did not seem like a convincing round at the very least to me. And then of course when you have round 3 and round 1 going to him, round 2 is what it comes down to. So you got to make it. You got
Mhm.
to pick the things that make it what it is.
Yeah, but then obviously round 3, Colby is slowing down, starting to get hit with shots, and he gets hit by some crazy amounts of power from Vince Morales that he's able to pull out the fucking ether because he hadn't had it the entire fight. Colby is just now wobbled across the fucking. He's chicken dancing. Vince Morales pushes, gets him to the ground, and then he does this one thing that he has on his mind, which is to be the first dude to get a Peruvian necktie submission in the
Brother.
UFC.
Oh my
It's just
God.
like the fifth time that he's fucking done it, bro. He's not even the first couple times, against Elijah Smith and against Raul Rosas. I'm like, all right, I dig it. He's the Peruvian necktie guy. If he gets it, boom. He's at least threatening. It's looking close. They obviously they have to scramble, to get out of it. Sure. But this one right here was the epitome of you're doing too fucking much, brother. You got the dude on the ropes and you go for the most least likely submission I've ever seen in my fucking life. At
I
the
was
worst
dying.
angle, too. He like flipped over and it's like, what the fuck did you just do, brother?
Oh, dude, no, it was killing me, bro. You're exactly right. I mean, he gets him staggered in a fight that, again, knowing that round 1 was a wash for him, knowing round 2 could have been as close as people were making it seem. And then he fucking goes for the Peruvian necktie. Like you said, odd angle for it, too, when all you had to do was get on top of him and rain shots down. He was done. This is, I mean, like, look, anything can happen, right? He might have had a second wind in the moment. It might not have been as bad of a stagger as it seemed, whatever. But you'll find that out if you do the right thing, which he did not do.
Yeah, I just can't believe he didn't go for like a Darce or a Gilly, take his back, take it,
He wants to be put into the history books as that
I,
guy, you know?
I truly believe it. And I gotta respect it at the end of the day, I mean,
Only if it works.
oh my God, no, this I actually remember what I want to say, and this goes to Vince Morales. So,
Yeah.
party time in his post fight speech, I almost forgot. They are like, you weren't getting the Gilly. Your coach even said, "Stop doing it, do this," and he's like, what can I say? I don't listen at all. That's why I'm a fighter, And it was like I was like, all right, I kind of get it. It's a funny little thing. Like you don't listen to your fucking coaches. You don't listen to anybody. Or he said, I'm not in school to be an English
Yeah,
teacher
yeah.
because I don't. It's something stupid.
Right.
But either way,
That's why stay in school, kids. That's why, I didn't stay in school. I'm a fighter and I don't, because I don't listen to all that.
yeah, no, I love it. But Vince Morales in the same realm. It's like out of all the things that you could have done, everybody's on the sideline, elbow him, punch him, take his back. He's like, I got it. Peruvian necktie.
Exactly. Hold my beer, everybody. I got an idea.
Yeah.
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 Well,
The
great
the
job,
one
dude.
person in the crowd, "Get him with the Peruvian necktie," and he's like, that guy." Yeah.
Oh my lord, yeah. So either way, obviously the Peruvian necktie did not win. Did not work. He did not win this fight. Unanimous decision win for thickness off of rounds 1 and 2. Again, fair. Like I said, I'm not mad about this being what it is. I am very conscious of the optics of this sport. And again, I think that really, like, at the end of the day, and this is just more of like a philosophical aspect for this, if the optics are that important, then you have to just be okay with that being the thing. And that's where I've certainly gotten to. It's like, yeah, I could go through and X's and O's this thing. I could be, sitting there with the clicker going, strike by strike and adding in significance and all of that kind of stuff. But if we're judging off of vibes for certain ones of these fights, then the vibes are what matter. And I don't think that it's wrong because it is that, that's how your mind intellectualizes what you see when you're watching these fights at times.
What I will say, my favorite part about this, and we can move on after
Sure.
unless you have anything else to say, but the favorite thing about this is I picked Vince Morales for sure. I had him on the bet on the picks. We'll obviously talk about all the numbers later, but the fact that Thinker is willing to go to bat for somebody that I picked that I don't think won, but I had him on the books, and this is one of my favorite fighters. I think Vince Morales is awesome. Even listen, this is my guy, and I don't think he won, but I'm very happy that in a way I'm telling you guys, I know that Vince is a good fighter deep down, and he can win fights. He just fucking throws it away, brother. I don't know.
Well,
That 70 fucking K that he was offered in the lobby one day, brother. They must have said, go for the Peruvian necktie every single time you have the finish. You will get 70 grand every time. And he said yes, and they never spoke again. That's
I
just how it is.
apparently, yeah. Well, and like I said, he even if he did not win this, he can certainly go over and try a Peruvian necktie and a number of other organizations, and you can be a fan of him there as well. So, but really going back to the original point, it's not like I'm going for Vince off of any kind of like bias or specific interest in him personally or anything that I saw. I'm really just going objectively off of how I perceived this fight. So, but that also gets paired with the aura and then the optics of it all. So I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. This outcome is perfectly acceptable. Shout out to Colby Thickness for getting a win in his home country, and now Volk's little brother can fight on for another day here.
Yeah, dude, his blonde mustache is like really uneasy. Have you like
Blonde
it's
mustaches always are, bro. It's yeah, it's a tough look when you're that light.
true.
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, let's move on to two dark haired gentlemen who put on the people's main event over here. Jacob Malkoon, he fought Gerald Mearshart. Mearshart, who missed weight by 4 pounds. Almost surprising that this fight was allowed to continue on, but they let it go. And what a fight we got out of it, man. If you thought that there were going to be other boring fights on this card or sloppy fights on this card, this was certainly laying the groundwork of a solid foundation of sloppiness.
Yeah, say what you want about Wes Schultz, but it was at least entertaining. This one here, you know, wasn't very fun because Jacob Malkoon is unfortunately not a very fun fighter, it seems. He had Gerald Mearshart who is somebody who's predisposed to getting chinned, you know, not able to put up much of a fight once he starts getting fucking rocked kind of deal. Which you even saw shades of it in here. Like he got hit a few times where it stunned him, but like he's still able to just stand there and just like walk it off. You know, Gerald Mearshart had this fucking I'm gonna stand still the entire time approach, and I didn't really understand it. Like maybe that was part of the game plan. It's like, oh, he can only punch going forward. It's like I don't fucking know what's going on
Brother,
here.
no,
But
hold on 1 second with that, because Bisping said too. This was after the first round where Gerald basically laid on top of Malkoun for the entire
mhm,
round. I mean, 4 minutes of control time. Say they gave him 4 minutes 23 seconds of control time. 4 of those minutes were in round one. But Bisping comes in the second round saying Gerald is looking particularly slow tonight. That goes to your point, bro. Gerald has been the slowest middleweight on the roster since before the pandemic. This
mm,
is a slow striker. This is a slow plotting individual in general. And while in the past he has been able to gain speed when he actually gets his hands on you in grappling situations where he's been able to find submissions, he is no longer that guy doing that. So you take that element away from things, this is what you're left with. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to put that point in there because yeah, you're saying, oh, he can only strike off the back. He can't move.
mhm.
He just cannot move his body.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Trust me, I see it now. It was pretty crazy. And Malkoun he had his little moments where he would crack him, but it was visually astonishing that a stationary target wasn't getting the punching bag treatment. You know, I was very upset at that because it's crazy to think that people like Kelvin Gastelum, who have this quick hand speed, that I thought Jacob Malkoun, the times that I saw him the last time, I was like, okay, he's kind of got some quick hands. Like he might be able to just get in and get out, but he didn't show shit in this fight. He didn't show nothing. You had a dude, again, Gerald Mearshart, you could get him out of there, and he wasn't able to do that. He wasn't even able to like give him the punching bag experience. I even thought generously Gerald Mearshart might have even won this fight. I don't know if that's just me, but he was looking a little better to me. I
At
don't know.
times, perhaps. I mean, like, but the issue that I had was like he could have won this fight outright. I don't understand why he went to the striking in round two after laying on top of Malkoun for an entire round. I said he could have just pancaked the second round and then tanked damage in the third, and he would have won this fight. Like, I said that Malkoun and Gerald exchanged some slow striking in this fight, and there was a couple of instances that you could say that's the if you want to call it a moment, you're again being generous, but like if you want to say that, okay, there was a little bit here and there on either side that you can give as the thing to latch onto. But the one time that like really had me really perplexed when it came to Malkoun, because Gerald allowed him to strike so much, there was a time, I believe it was round two, where Gerald was like almost cowering on the cage. Like he had his back to the cage, had his hands up. And instead of going to his power hand, Malkoun is just pawing out left hand tap jabs. I'm like, what are you, bro? Like you had it in your so this is just a comedy of errors, but not in a fun way like the Schultz fight, like you said. I mean, this was just like poor decision making on top of just sloppy base level foundations for both of these guys. And then later on in the fight, Malkoun gets he ends up getting another takedown. Gerald ends up with the gilly at the very end of the fight, but nothing doing with that. So like you have all of that to equal up to 2 rounds of striking where Malkoun, again, optically, I guess you could say, maybe took it. Gerald had a couple of mere moments here and there. They were talking about it on commentary why Gerald wasn't going to the kicks. Again, he cannot move his body. So what is he supposed to do? He would take his leg and just have to fling it outwards and hope that it lands as a kick. Like there was nothing doing when it came to the striking. Gerald had the opportunity to lay on top of this guy for another round, didn't take it, loses the fight, I think deservedly.
Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, I thought it could have been Gerald, but when the scorecard came out, I quickly just did not give a shit about the rest of this. So, yeah, this fight it was pretty bad. Gerald Mearshart at one time, was the Lord of the Apex. He was the guy that you had to beat to get to the pay-per-view. And now that he's on the pay-per-view against somebody like Jacob Malkoun, it's like, what are we even doing with him now? It's like, Jesus.
I've been saying this, I want to say, for like 5 fights now. Every fight, I just am waiting for Gerald to lay those gloves down. And it's not out of disrespect or disliking of him. I am a fan of his from his previous fights. I hate seeing where he is now trended towards. And this loss streak that he is on is seemingly never ending. I mean, like, he's getting into that same position as someone else we'll talk about on this card. Does not have nearly the fan support as that other person. Uh, you got to know when to fold him, brother, and you're not able to do the things that you once did. Like I said, you take away the one core asset that he has, which is his submission ability. If that's gone, this striking does not cut it. It doesn't cut it at middleweight or any other division. Middleweight is a light division until you get up until the upper echelons of it right now. And you'll get beat by all of these other middleweights. I mean, like, literally, like, there's a bunch of other guys on this card at middleweight that will beat you. So I really hope that Gerald like has a come to his senses moment and just lays those gloves down out of self-respect, really, more than anything.
What's funny is there's even middleweights on the card that we're going to talk about for this week that would give Jacob Malkoun problems. There's multiple of them on that card, so there's just too many people that you could name off the top of your head. Anybody, yeah, the ranked people are just Jacob Malkoun is just not that, you know.
I was talking about Mearshart, but it goes for Malkoun as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, both of them, yeah.
I mean, that right there proves the point. You know what I mean? Like, but neither of these guys posing any kind of threat to anybody else in this division. And Gerald Mearshart specifically, the time has come. Malkoun, a little bit younger, perhaps he's probably got a little bit more time to, gain some of, unfortunately, what would seem to be some more losses before he makes that decision. But certainly Mearshart is at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's 30 years old, so I guess we'll see how it goes for him.
Oh yeah, like I said, plenty more time, and maybe some crazy turnaround happens. He did knock a man out with his hip, and that will never be forgotten. So he's already got a claim to fame off of that. But Gerald, the better days I think are behind him.
You know what's crazy? Imagine if, because that was in that was in his destiny. That was his history book. Imagine if he got all the way to the title shot and that's how he beat Hamzat.
That actually might be one of the things that Sean Strickland should be training is hip strengthening for when. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Hams, he's going to shoot. Makes sense.
Yeah, he probably called up Jacob.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, fair enough. Yeah, fight that'll go down in the history books for sure.
That conversation was better than the fight itself, probably.
I certainly agree. And a weight loss, or excuse me, a weight miss to boot on that one, if you recall. So anyway, next up though, this was better. Better for one guy at least. This is Junior Tafa versus Kevin Christian. Man, I mean, I feel bad for this Kevin Christian guy, brother. We talked a lot on the previous episode about the very brutal, unfortunate situation with his submission by Billy Elikana. So he gets brutally submitted and now has been brutally knocked out as well. I'd say this guy is running out of ways to lose, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, let me start with the positives. The positives first, because he looked sharp to start.
You're not wrong.
He looked dialed in. He looked like he had a game plan, and it looked very, very nice. The biggest flaw, obviously, is and I truly believe this. I know, scale up. He is very skinny. Like he is very, very skinny. So he needs a lot of muscle if he's going to support the impact from people like Tafa and all the other big heavy hitters at light heavyweight. Like this dude is. I mean, imagine if I got hit. Listen. He's just the inability to take huge shots is clearly already there. Like the fight started and he's whipping low kicks, he's throwing naked low kicks, and of course it's not looking good. But Junior Tafa's walking right into him. That's the biggest key right there. Junior Tafa is walking forward. Kevin Christensen kicking his legs out from under him. But there was one shot where Junior just like throws like a little overhand hook and it just fucking like clips Kevin Christian early. And like you saw and you're like, oh fuck. You knew right there. It's like, bro, he cannot just like take a shot. Anyway, so Kevin Christian is back to it. He's back to the leg kicks. And this is the biggest issue. Junior Tafa has mastered the art. And this goes for a lot of people at heavyweight, light heavyweight. They mastered the art of striking with very to little movement. So if you take his legs out from under him and he can't walk forward, now you're in his wheelhouse. You have to come to him. And he can check kicks all he wants when he's just standing there. Yeah, I mean, he's just standing there, and Kevin Christensen is trying to style on him. He's getting all this stuff off. But Junior Tafa I said this about Turkish guys, Australian, Samoan guys, whatever you want to say, same deal. They just have the ability to just say, fuck it, the fight's about to be over. And I just throw the biggest shot and I throw all of my body into it. Like it's kind of crazy to think about. Like you would think it's so telegraphed. Like, the big bomb is coming, but it comes, and it comes quick. And Kevin Christensen gets fucking rocked with this. He gets wobbled. He starts running away. Junior Taffa chases him down, gets him to the ground. No, it's actually quite hilarious because this goes again to the frame and the frailness that Christian, God, his name is just, it needs to be Kevin Christensen. Anyway, the frailness when he shot for a takedown in, out of fear of getting knocked out, and Junior Taffa just fucking shoved him right over. Like it was crazy to see. Like, oh my god, this is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master, and he shot a double leg, sure, but he was in, it was instinctual. He's trying to fight for himself. He shoots, and he has like the worst fucking grip ever. Like, and he just
Oh,
gets fucking folded back, and I'm like,
brother.
oh, bro, yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, you're firing on all cylinders here. I said that commentary was glazing Christian's height, like he isn't tall for nothing. This is Stefan Struve, in Brazilian form over here. I agreed with you though that Christian was doing the right thing early on. The low kicks were working. Taffa was reacting, got him to, hobble a little bit there, and he pressed him on with that. Pretty amazing considering Christian's twiggy legs. This goes to what you were saying about that. He's a thin guy. I would be very concerned with those low kicks for him that he doesn't have a pool noodle situation coming up at some point. If he's going to continue spamming those low kicks, you got to be very careful about shin to shin. But that's besides the point. Of course, I do not wish that on him. I just, something to be aware of for him because he does have thin legs. But Christian starts getting tagged. He keeps moving on the feet. You're exactly, if Taffa is stationary, this is your time to shine, big man. You're a ranged striker at that point. All you got to do is dance around him. You could be tagging him up from all different angles, but no, he just continues to move right on into striking range and get tagged like that. I said, isn't this guy supposed to be a high level BJJ guy as well? Like, where is the level change if you need to go to that also? If you're not going to be doing the right thing, which is staying on the outside and striking from range, if you're not going to do that and you get clipped, shouldn't the instinct be to go for the level change? Well, that came way too late because Taffa tags him again. Christian goes running, and then this is what you were talking about. And bro, I felt my heart sink at this moment, especially on the rewatch. The rewatch really drove it home just to how bad this was. He goes running, and then he tries to stop on a dime. That's what
Yes.
did it. That's what really did it. Is because he finally decides, oh, now is the time. At random, it seemed, but now is the time to level change. But the momentum of Taffa, the bigger guy, just bulldozes him. He ran right through him. I said, this is possibly the worst panic shoot of all time right here. And then it ends up into elbows, to oblivion from Taffa. So good night after that. This was just so unfortunate as to the navigation of this fight. And it really, I think it goes back to what we had said a little bit about guys like Buchecha, where if you're really good at one thing, you can't just be really good at one thing. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you here, dude. If you're a high level BJJ guy, that's great for you. Go back to your, IDC or whatever, your IDCC. I mean, there are a lot of other places where you can be a high level BJJ guy, but doing it like this and trying to incorporate it the way that you did is never going to work.
Well, let's not be too harsh. You're saying you can't be the guy that just does the one thing. He lost to Junior Taffa here. Like, I mean, he's the guy that does
Should
the
that
one
not
thing.
tell you that
But
that?
he's the guy that does the one
Oh,
thing.
well,
So yes, you technically can be, but you have to be better at that one thing than the other people. You can't just be a mediocre grappler who comes in here trying to fucking strike.
okay, well then
Like,
let me amend it. You can be very good at striking, and
there you go.
and that's fine, I guess. It's not great, but at least it's you have more of a chance, I suppose. You can always get the puncher's chance off of that.
What I will say is, unfortunately, Kevin Christian. There's another thing I'll say about Junior Taffa, but Kevin Christian, unfortunately, in recent history, I don't know if I've seen, and this, he's a good fighter, and you can see the skills, and I'm not trying to be that way, but for content purposes, this has to be one of the worst intros to the sport. When you got to the UFC, brutally finished, choked out, and then your next fight, brutally finished, knocked out. I mean, you're 2 for 2 here, brother. Like, I can't
Wh-
really, I can't really say too much. Go ahead.
Plus, slightly late stoppage. I think this probably could have been ended maybe 2 elbows earlier. I'm not mad at it. It's it's in the moment, whatever. I mean, hindsight is 2020 on stuff like that when it's in the motion like that. And Taffa was going as heavy as he was, but it speaks to the point. Brutally submitted because of the tap that wasn't recognized, and then now a knockout that went longer than it needed to. He was, still eyes wide open when they were, ending the fight and pulling Tafa off of him.
Yeah. One last question, and then I want to say something about Tafa. But did you have an issue with the replay on this?
No, but I did notice over the course of the replays in general that there were, this goes to the Paramount Plus system being just atrocious when it comes to watching fights back. Let this be a note to everybody out there who is listening to this, and thank you all for doing so. If you are watching these fights, really try to make sure that you're watching them in real time, like when they're airing, because if you try to go back and rewatch fights on Paramount Plus, it is a tremendously poor experience. So to your point, it wasn't this fight that was doing it, but there were a number of fights where it would just decide to stop. It like the replay just decided to stop midway through the fight. Now, if you go back and restart the fight and get to the point where you were, you can finish the feed out. But it just at random decided to just have a mind of its own.
Yeah, no, mine definitely was only a 14-minute feed for the West Schultz. I was watching it and it was like, play next. It was like, do you want to play next? And like the little, I was like, no, what the fuck? Like, let me watch the fuck. And then it was just a 14-minute feed. I was actually really upset. But the last thing I want to say about Junior Tafa, and I think this speaks to how he's, how big of a, he's 7-5. He's a fan favorite for the Aussies, of course, but I think, and this goes to a lot of Aussie fighters as well. I think this is kind of the key thing to him because you see when he gets kicked in the leg, immediately already shit's not going right for him. He already did the wrong thing, but the point is. He grits his teeth and he's going to continue fighting, and when you see Tafa because we've seen him in this situation literally every single time. Every single time he comes into a fight, his legs get kicked out and he's like, fuck. And then he just like has to walk forward. And it's like, this is your bed. You got to lie in it. But to be fair, he does go out there and he does fight. He fought Walter Walker, guys. Let's not forget he got submitted by potentially a non-verbal tap, so who
True.
knows?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. That would be my last note is don't let this fool you into believing that Tafa is going to come out here and be a world ender. This is Kevin Christian we're talking about. When we talked about this on the predictions episode, I had said, the big question is if he could take down Tafa, and he did not do that. There are certainly many, many other people who have and will continue to. So, just keep that in mind for your next predictions and your betting and whatnot. But in this moment against this level of opponent, what I'd say too is that, like, yeah, in Australia, they're teeing up Australian fighters. That is just a known thing based on what we've seen on this card. It is especially true. They're going to run out of people who are going to fit that bill if these guys don't continue to develop skills. And we have consistently seen the Tafas and, of course, Tai Tuivasa, who we'll talk about, not point blank period. They are not developing new skills. So just keep that in mind. And that's my final word on that.
100%.
All right. Well, let's move on to the featured prelim here. Of course, this is Cam Rouston versus Robert Brycek. I want to start this one off by giving a shout out to our good friends over at the 10-7 MMA. Bam Bam from the 10-7 said that Brycek was a formidable striker. He came in and was saying, yeah, this guy Brycek, he's got good hands over here. And I said, you saw flecks of that in round one. He had a very nice body shot combination. And then as soon as the level changing started and I guess what I would class as Cam Rouston's relentless awkwardness, once that started to shine through, this really, really became the Cam Rouston show. And I don't think that I even necessarily in the moment acknowledged how good of work Rouston was doing in at least the second round and potentially the first. Third round, maybe a little bit less so because they were both a little bit gassed. But like, I actually came around to Cam Rouston a little bit based on the fact that he is just very strange in what he does, but somehow makes it effective.
All right. I'm going to have to break the news to everybody in the chat, especially Thinker. This was a boring fight.
Oh, please get out of here.
This one was not the featured prelim that it should have been. I'm personally not on the hype train of Cam Rouston. I don't personally see the why he would be the featured prelim. Like, I mean, do the Aussies like him? Sure. I mean, that's fine. But like, I don't personally see star power. I'm not seeing battle giraffe or whatever. I mean, they can have a good time with it. That's fine, but
Autism sells, bro.
yeah, that's what I got to in the watch along is I was starting to think like, is this really Like, obviously, we have speculations and different things that we would like to say about other people, but like, is this the marketing? Is this marketing now? Like, I don't know. You just have to be, the challenged kind of story. I don't know.
It's certainly unique, I would say, and I think that that's why I liked this performance from Rouston is because it was look, I'm not saying that that's 100% the truth. I don't know if
Mhm.
it is or not, but if there are flecks of that or somewhere on the spectrum of that, it certainly shows in his fighting. I mean, like like he's odd angles, odd entries, odd striking. I mean, this guy is just an odd guy, and it kind of shows in the way that he does what he does.
Yeah, but my thing to say to that, and we'll get to a fight later that proves my point exactly, is we have, DDP, I would say, is in a realm of his own, Yuri in a realm of his own. Maybe Cam Rowson is able to get to these levels. I would like to not, we'll wait, of course. But when it comes to being unorthodox or unique, there's a reason technique exists. It does trump being a fucking idiot and
Oh, well,
lunatic and doing stupid shit,
we'll
like,
certainly talk about that later on the card too. Yeah.
so having Cam Rouston come out here, and I was actually pretty correct about this one. I thought Cam Rouston was going to win. I thought Brychek was going to be pretty tough, and this was going to be the decision that you would need to believe, like, oh, he can do this for 3 rounds. Now we have to see him against somebody who's fucking good, kind of deal. Like, that's actually going to put up a good performance and give him something to worry about. But this fight here, I can't believe how unbelievably I did not care. And maybe I'm just against Cam Rowston, and I don't mean to be, but like, I truly am not seeing the star in the making here,
Oh no, well, yeah, and don't take what I'm saying for thinking that there is star power in this guy. He
No,
is
it's other people too. I mean, this
well,
dude's pretty
sure.
popular.
Yeah, if fair, I guess, everybody's got their own opinions about why they like or dislike fighters for, various reasons and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, he is terrible on the microphone. Let's just get that out of the way. And also what I said about this performance is that there's, while I did think that this was a solid performance from Rouston again in those first 2 rounds, especially because round three, I mean, Brychik was done in round three. He was either gassed or just defeated for not having any answers for the inevitable takedown. So no urgency to strike from him. Rouston wet blanketed for round three, so that's a bit of a wash. But rounds 1 and 2, I said it was a solid performance, and while I do acknowledge that, there is no way that he can replicate this against actual wrestlers. Like the stuff that he was doing is going to be figured out very easily, and that's why he called out Marvin Vettori in his post fight. I was like, okay, another striker that you want to try to do all of this goofy shit with, go up and try to actually do any of this stuff with a person who has a solid wrestling base, and you're going to get shut down a lot with what you try to get away with.
Yeah, calling out the low hanging fruit. I mean, what can you do?
I'm
I
not even
mean,
mad at that part. I'm just it's the style that gets me because it's like it's an easy it's if they actually give him what he wants with that, he thinks that he can just dance around and do what he does here, get his hands on and be sticky and and just kind of muscle him around. I don't necessarily think he will be able to do that with Vittori, but he has a good shot of it. Why not? We know where Vittori is at. That's what bothers me more about it. Like low hanging, dude, take the low hanging fruit. If you won the fight, you call out whoever you want.
right? Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, I just don't have too much to say about this performance because he really just got to do whatever he wanted to do. This was just a moving target kind of deal. I mean, the grappling, of course, but it was just training for Cam Rousing. He just got to hang out and just have a good time, and then got to see his family, got to have that stupid haircut, whatever you want to say. But yeah, it was fine. I didn't care for the thing I will say is he has massive size for the division. That's
True.
the thing that I will say. So.
Well, and that actually, I was going to ask you. I see Johnny the God in the chat saying that Belgarwi perhaps has a matchup. I don't think that they would make that matchup, but you want to talk about somebody who would be able to handle all of this and still have the kickboxing on top of it. I mean, that might not be. There could be worse matchups there.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. I'm very interested to see where Cam Ralston goes, but I mean, it's clear that he's some sort of a star, and what a star, he's some sort of prospect in the making, and I guess what just there's people that are relatable to a lot of different walks of life. There's a lot of different shoes that the stars fill. You have your Tommy McMillans, you have your fucking Sean Stricklands, you have your Cam Ralstons, you have your John Silvas. There's just lots of different things, lots of different people going on. So Cam Ralston, all the best to you, but I would like to see an opponent that's actually going to be able to win the fight against you.
Yeah, I'm with that. The only other thing I had about this that I thought was kind of funny, maybe speaking a little bit to that spectrum we talked about, he was in full mount a couple of times in this fight and ended up in full mount to finish this fight. And while he was fully mounted on Brychek, he goes for the hand slap, which I thought was kind of a funny thing. Like, he's literally looking down at him and was like,
Nice.
they like, and it was like Brychek sounded like, okay, buddy, get the fuck off me,
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cute. But yeah, other than that, fine enough performance against a guy who I was not super high on to begin with in Brychuk. I think that now we have also seen that there is, gas tank problems with him as well. So if he is a striker of some merit, then he needs to, work on his cardio so he can do it for 3 rounds. And as far as Cam Rouston goes, let's see what they do with him. I mean, if they end up giving him Vittori or someone of that range, then he's going to have a lot more to contend with than he did in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they give Vittori to this guy and not Ateba Gautier, then they just missed the mark.
You can't just keep feeding people to a Teba Gautier over and over. I guess
He
maybe you
needs
can.
a
I don't know.
ranked guy.
True. That's a good point. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Fuck is this dude done to get a ranked guy?
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's get into it. Tai Tuivasa, he fought Louis Sutherland. This was a fight that I think a lot of people had earmarked because of the massive loss streak that Tai Tuivasa was on coming into this fight and now continues to be on. He was on a 6-fight losing streak, and now he is on a 7-fight losing streak. I did want to note going into this review, Tai Tuivasa was a minus 225 favorite while on this 6-fight losing streak. Excuse me. Obviously, there was some inkling that there could be better out of Tai, and I really have to stress that if that was the thought, because I myself took Tai Tuivasa to win this fight, thinking that if it is not just purely off of being a better fighter, it could also be off the knowledge, which he acknowledged. I was watching your Street Word show where you listened to him in his pre-fight interview saying he knows how on the chopping block he is. And I thought you made an excellent point. I was glazing you, Chase, on some of my other streams, saying that Chase made an excellent point about Tai Tuivasa coming into this fight. You said Tai Tuivasa is not training for this fight. He is training to be at the level of being a UFC caliber fighter. I said, chef's kiss to that, Chase. That is such an astute observation, and this fight proved it in spades.
And what's funny to think about is like it's Louis fucking Sutherland. This is not the most dynamic person that you could think about, but like, watching tape and understanding your opponent is very key. And it was 2 days notice, whatever, 2 weeks notice, whatever Louis Sutherland said in this fucking post fight, whatever the case may be, that's fine and all, good and well. But Tai Tuivasa doesn't watch the fucking sport. He even said it himself. You would know Louis Sutherland is not very good, and you can expose him. Obviously, maybe the chips weren't in the table for Ty to be able to do that, but on 2 days' notice, 2 weeks' notice, Louis Sutherland is not the craziest fucking cat to be able to figure out a game plan for. Is all that my point is. So the fact that this fight sucked, I'm not surprised, but it was one of dude. This was just horrible. It was just really bad. I mean, to list some things. I mean, you had horrible striking. You had Louis Sutherland shooting takedowns. Tai Tuivasa stuffing some of them, which was actually the impressive thing. Then we had Louis Sutherland gassing out in the 3rd round. Him pulling guard. Tai Tuivasa throws an illegal knee.
Yes, he did.
This fight,
to see the knee.
was
Yeah. Well, so okay. We'll talk about that real quick. So that was at the very end of the fight. So Sutherland was like standing up, and Ty hit Sutherland with a knee on the level change, but it didn't look like he was down at that point. But then he hits the illegal knee, like when he was actually on the ground. Yeah, like that was the ref takes a point like without stopping action because I guess the fight was just that close to being concluded. Whatever. This was already, I mean, like if you needed to seal Tai Tuivasa more firmly inside of the coffin, then there's your nail right there. But that is after so much, unfortunate stuff going on in this fight. And what I had said earlier in this fight in round 1, I was like, Tai, actually, to his credit, he got up. He got up from some of these takedowns. Like you said, he hit the sprawl. I said it in one moment early in this fight. I was like, oh shit, Tai might actually have improved a little bit here, much to the contrary of all odds. Against all odds, he might have actually made some improvements, but then just incrementally throughout the course of this fight, you just see mistake after mistake. and just a fundamental lack of any fundamentals, period. That was just, it was so bad when it came to that. All of this rolling around, flopping that was going on, all playing directly into Sutherland's hands. You made the point that Ty doesn't watch the sport. If you knew anything about Louis Sutherland, you knew that this is what he's going to try to do. And especially against you, Ty, a guy who he knows if you get him on his back, you have 20,000 times the advantage that you do on the feet. Sutherland is a bit of a wrestler, so that was going to be the game plan. I was mad at myself for not going through all of the specific points leading into this fight to get this exact conclusion, because in hindsight it makes perfect sense.
I want to talk about just one thing that happened specifically in the fight, and then I'm basically done talking about this one. It was quote unquote the fat man roll, and I really enjoyed this portion because there was a tweet that said if I had never known the name of this move and this was the fight that I had saw it, done in, I would also have then called it the fat man roll because it genuinely it's something you really don't see. Kind of, it was really slick the way that happened because it's kind of he like literally rolls on his arm, which I can see how you would roll with him if your arm was getting you know e- engulfed by this dude's fucking body or whatever, and he actually rolls completely on top of Ty right into full mount. It was the craziest sequence I've seen from one, a fucking heavyweight, and two, from majority of anybody on the ground. Like the fact that this is not somebody that the craziest level of jujitsu specialist has pulled out or some wrestler. No, it's fucking Louis Sutherland. Yeah, he just did it, guys. That's
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Fat man roll on full display in this fight, definitely. And then a lot of pancaking from Sutherland at times, just laying on top of Ty. There was a point where the crowd, excuse me, starts chanting, "Stand him up." And I'm thinking to myself, like, do you think that this is going to help in this fight if you stand them up at this point? These guys were, you saw the sloppiness on display there. And then, so you have it where if you stand them up, you're going to have sloppy striking on the feet. Or if you end up with what Sutherland had, you had sloppiness on the ground. I mean, there was times where he had the full mount, considers a head and arm instead of the ground and pound in that full mount situation. It's like, okay, do you, brother? See if you can get that big old arm to constrict the blood flow. Let's see if you can actually make that work. Of course, he did not. And then of course you get into the third round where it's more of these the sprawling that ends up with Ty getting tripped immediately thereafter. That was pretty funny. He sprawls out one takedown attempt and then immediately gets tripped on the next instance. It's like you're just like it's stepping on rakes upon stepping on rakes, just like in visual form for the viewers. And then of course we talked about all of the foul stuff at the very end, which makes no lick of difference. 30-26s across the board. Chase, did you know that Tai Tuivasa drinks beer out of a shoe? Did you know this? Are you aware of this?
Oh, guys, he wants to do a shoey. He can only do it if he wins, though. That he may never do one again. He may never do it again, guys.
I say the days of the shoey are long behind us now, and that's really what my ultimate point was, because I was yelling that on the watch along. I'm like, we're watching all of this unfold, and I'm like, but he drinks beer out of a shoe, people, right? Come on, this is what you want. This is the highest level of this sport. Same thing that we were talking about in the West Schultz fight, or like any of these other fights where it's like not really, like you're amazed at what you're looking at, kind of thing. Think about that. We had 2 instances at least on this card. If you don't need 3, if you count the Mearshart fight, where this is what you are getting out of the highest level of this sport, purportedly at least. I'm telling you guys, Deep 2001 over in Japan looks more and more attractive every day watching the UFC.
This fight, I'm just glad it's over with at the end of the day.
But do they keep Ty more, Chase? I mean, this is the because I owe Didgeridoo Dave a T-shirt off of this. We had a gentleman's agreement, gentleman's bet that because I thought Ty was done after the last fight. After the Teixeira fight, I was like, "There's no way they keep this guy around." Could you see a world where Ty is on a 7-fight losing streak and still gets booked?
Yes,
Oh, good
absolutely.
lord!
Yep. That's how it goes, man. They keep everybody around to see how many times they can lose. Look at Tony, look at BJ Penn, look at Sam Alvey. It's just how it is.
I mean, he's rivaling all of those people though at this point. I mean, I got to imagine that there's an end point somewhere.
It will be after the next one, after he breaks Tony Ferguson's record.
True. Yeah, they'll throw him up against a Contender Series guy.
Oh my God, Lachlan. Thank God you brought it up because this pissed me off. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
fucking 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm witnessed 5 whole minutes of the commentary crew talking about the beer snake in the fucking crowd, brother. I don't get one, Lachlan. Shout out to you guys. I'm glad we got to experience it. It would be cool if I was in the arena and I saw that, got to partake. But brother, I didn't give two fucks. Get the fuck in the cage and get in the fucking combat on. Beer snake my ass. Where the fuck? Get in the fucking cage, bro. Like,
Dude, I said it on the watch along, and I'll say it here too. Maybe I'm just, yeah, out of touch. Maybe I'm just not a guy who understands fun, you could say. And if that's a criticism that you have of Thinker St. James, more power to you. You're probably right. But what I say about this, I compared it to mudding. I don't know if you're familiar with mudding. I don't know if they have it in
I
Ohio,
get you.
that shit.
Yes,
But
trust me.
yes, out here in Florida, it's very popular. They, people drive around in big trucks in mud. They spray mud everywhere. The truck gets all muddy, and this is a leisure activity for people. And what I say to that is, it never ceases to amaze me the things that people will pass off as fun and what they will get behind as things to be proud of. It never ceases to amaze me the things that people will be proud of. The beer snake firmly in this category.
I truly think you're cooking. If you are out there and you are in the mudding community, I stand against you, brother. I am also not a fan of slinging mud around. It's like, is the point just to go get it washed again? Like, oh, we get to go to the car wash now. Like, I don't get, wait, where's the enjoyment out of all of this stuff? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know, but
driving in
continue on.
circles in a puddle of mud, also stacking a bunch of beer cups together and making it very, very long. Wow, this is I mean, I know that we're in Perth, Western Australia, but there's got to be more fun to be had than that. Maybe
I
not.
I give them credit, they were committed, but these drinks weren't even finished. If you were watching, the dude was holding it up with his hat, right? And then he's dumping the fucking cups on. Like, it's I also would not want to be the person who's wet like from beer and then have to continue watching the rest of the show, you know? Like,
True, dude. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
and if the guy's holding it like this, it's not beer that I'm worried about on my clothes. It's going down the back of my fucking shit at that, like, anyway, this is just not listen, this is why I don't do beer snakes, guys. I have too many problems with it. But either way,
Yeah, I mean, but these are also the people that do the shoeies. So maybe it's just a cultural thing. And again, shout out to you guys. Whatever
look what
you,
Lachlan just said. They invented mudding.
you're not helping your case with that, Lachlan. um, yeah, no. Hey, look, again, congratulations on what was described to me in the chat as a very fine specimen of a beer snake. So if you're proud of it, like I said, I do not understand that pride, but if you are proud, congratulations, you accomplished your mission.
True, 100%, 100%.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next fight here. Fight of the night here. Amazingly so, perhaps. But this is Shamil Gaziev versus Brando Pericic. I mean, look, Shamil getting that first takedown, and, we're all thinking the same thing. Here we go. All right. Another boring fight. Shamil's going to wet blanket. Little did we know that this was going to turn into more sloppy striking. I mean, this was not exactly a technical striking buffet over here. However, it did turn out to be a bit of a grudge match. And I do appreciate that both of these guys were putting that work in to make it happen in this fight, even though, one guy obviously had more to give in that department and made it his fight from it.
It is kind of funny because, yeah, Shamil had, the takedown. Sure, he was clearly the blob as always. He was in full blob form. Perisic, he is good. He's very skilled. He definitely hangs with the best heavyweights in the division. But he looked tired after the first round. I know this is heavyweights, but like, so did Shamil. We see it time again. If you get to the second round with any other heavyweight, anything's possible at that point. You're not going to have the power that you did, at least in theory. He did here. He did carry over. Shamil took a beating. But the problem is, this was also, I think, a tailor-made matchup, and I just didn't see it. I have never, and maybe I just did not get to see enough of it, and I don't. Maybe with Rosenstrike, we should have seen it coming. With Waldo Cortez, we should have seen it coming. Shamil Gaziev does not use striking defense. It's not that he doesn't. I mean, maybe he doesn't know how. I don't know. Maybe he does, because you know how you do something wrong. So you do something so wrong is because you know how to do it right, but you purposely do it the wrong way. Like, he has like the "I'm gonna break your hand with my head" type defense, and it's like horrible because he's getting destroyed and he's getting tagged up, and he also has like the tall man's defense where he just does this and then he gets fucking punched in the face more. Like, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh yeah, no, I mean by the second round, because I mean that first round ended up being, I think more activity than either one of them was anticipating. So, second round, yeah, you're right. I mean, Shamil could barely keep his hands up, period. No guard whatsoever. So you talk about striking defense. I mean, there was none to be seen. And Brando, again, just a guy who I guess is a little bit better conditioned. That's really what it came down to. I mean, and not much, like you said. I mean, these guys were tired. My favorite part of this fight was what started all of this off. Earlier on in the first round, Shamil has him clinched up on the cage, and goated Dan Movahedi. Shout out to a referee that I can actually give some praise to, Dan Movahedi, early on, because he had seen Dan Movahedi was watching all these other fights in the back. He was like, I'm not letting this fight be all that other bullshit that we saw where these guys are just letting these dudes sit here and hang out doing nothing for the entire fight. So early in this fight, round one, they're on the cage. He breaks it up. He taps the back. He says, "Not get out here. Go put in some work." And instantly when that happened, it just changed the entire course of this fight. Like they both realized that, oh, I guess we got to punch each other in this fight. And that's sort of what started this ball rolling. But that's also what started Shamil's downfall, because he wasn't expecting this type of fight, I think. And, Brando, this is the exact type of fight that he wants. So this kind of went how I thought it could go, not from the elements of it, but ultimately the same conclusion.
What I will say is, had this been a jumping competition for Brando, that was somebody, that wasn't Shamil, the potential that he was going to get upset was there. I mean, in the second round, he's just walking with his hands down. He's really labored, and this is coming after we saw Hokett and Blades. They go 3 hard rounds, like they never stopped, kind of deal. So the level of competition is going to have to change. Like Brando, the commentary crew is talking about, oh, during fight week, he's talking about no heavyweight can last 5 minutes with me, and it's like, well, brother, I know Shamil didn't last too much longer than 5 minutes, but if you're not landing that big bomb, it's gonna get interesting towards the end of the fight, because you were looking really labored. And at this point, like, I don't know. It's obviously he's never been there. It's a different type of, you can't train for it, kind of deal. You have to experience it before you really know what it's like, kind of deal. So he's still doing his thing. He had never left the first round up until this fight. A lot of experience coming. I do think Brando is one of the better prospects that we have, of course, at heavyweight, but I'm sold on some other people, I think, that I would say are the people that I would like. And I hate to say it. I hate to say it. And Hokett even tweeted like, "Oh, it takes a guy like me to to make them actually compete or whatever." Shamil also was not very. He was holding him against the cage for most of the part. And brother, did you not just see the heavyweight fucking fight before this? Like, so Hokett talking shit, that's fine, normal, no news. But the thing is he probably would beat Brando, and they're just as fresh to the game. They're just as green, kind of deal. So it's
Well,
just
would also need the assist because, yeah, I was talking about Movahedi in the first round, but in that second round too, Shamil, he was clinching on the cage just to catch his breath, and the ref
yeah,
again says no dice on the wall install and gets him back in there. You're not going to get that out of every referee. You know what I mean?
true.
Like, there's going to be plenty of times where you're going to be sitting there having to figure out, how to even make it a 50-50. So, there's definitely skills to be learned here, I would say. And there's probably a little bit more molding that needs to happen. Again, it's not something that really factors too much in, but I did say, obviously Brando takes it pretty seriously since he left his family in another country to do all of this. He now apparently, I had read, and I think he said it in his post-fight interview, that he was living in a van for all of this time. I mean, like, he is now just off of this bonus going to be able to afford an apartment. So that's a level of dedication that I respect, but you also got to pair it with some actual fundamental drilling and getting that cardio up there as well. So, definitely keep it going with all of that. And real quick, just have to
Yes.
give a huge shout out to Degenerate Dane with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it. Strong work, fellas. No casuals. No casuals indeed. Certainly not you, brother.
Absolutely. But I actually think you made, and hey, Degenerate Dane, shout out. Yes. But the point is, I think you actually made a really good point. Is Brando really, and immediately we got right to the cage, and yeah, he broke it up. But Brando was waiting for him to break it up. He wasn't doing nothing. Every time it got to that clinch situation, he just sat there. Imagine if the ref doesn't break it up. What the hell is he doing? Because how the hell are you tired after you sat up against that cage for all that time? But I digress. I'm not necessarily sold on Perisic. I know there's a lot of hype. Everybody wants to be, everybody wants to see the newest guy and think he's going to be the champ. I'm going to hold my thoughts on that one. It's a lot. Listen, champ within a year in heavyweight, guys. Tom's the champ. Alex and Gon are fighting for the interim. Volkov beat Gon. Volkov's fighting Waldo. Waldo's the rightful champ since he has two working eyes. There's just too many things going on in the mix. Brando within a year, very, 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 very high hopes, I would say.
Really, if you chart the course, especially if you've listened to the show for a long time, because we've talked about heavyweight, very consistently, and the state of heavyweight, what they've been trying to do with heavyweight, you're actually starting to see a little bit of the fruits of the labor coming into the works now. I mean, we have more of an active pool. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the highest caliber talent, but you are seeing shakeups. What you just outlined there, Chase, is a perfect illustration of all of that. And now some of these newer guys might also be in the mix potentially down the road. So we could actually see some decent heavyweight competition going forward, which is something to be excited about to an extent. So hopefully Brando can continue to be a part of that mix. If you think that he has champ potential, it's going to be more heat in that division, and that is good for competition in general. So, good win here. Keep it going, and maybe end up in the names that you just talked about there.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right. Well, good job, Brando and Meal Deal. That fight with John Jones, forever elusive.
Yeah, sucks to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the next fight on the list here. It was a quick one. It was Marwan Rahiki versus Ali Schmid. This is the fight that was announced. Really, I think that we were breaking news at the time when we found out about this fight, because it was announced very late and right when we were finishing up our predictions on the last episode. So, yeah, I mean, Ali Schmid kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. Rahiki on a hot streak. It was pretty obvious what this was supposed to be. Based on this fight, I said, and this is another shout out to the 10-7 MMA. We were chatting about this on the live stream. I agree with his assessment that Rahiki probably is a fraud check waiting to happen. This was not the night for it, but I am seeing red flags in Rahiki that are certainly concerning, but we have seen other fighters who have superseded that, who have gotten past what would appear to be red flags. They've gotten around them. They figured out a path to make a style work for them. But I did notice Rahiki kind of aura farming in this fight a little bit, kind of reaching for highlights a little bit more than just going out there and making it, his fight 100%, go get the job done.
Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this was some bullshit. This was
Uh-oh.
some BS. They found a guy on 5 days' notice who is 4-2, he had no opportunity to earn his way into this spot. I mean, this guy was handpicked because he knew a couple people in the region, and they threw his name into the mix and said, "We've trained with him. He's pretty good," and they gave him, a first round win for Rahiki. And thankfully, and what I'll say is, thankfully, the ref kind of ruined a highlight finish, because I think that would have been the worst part of it. Is if Rahiki would have came out here and got some spectacular finish where casuals are just like, "Oh, this dude's the next fucking guy," and they don't really know they don't know the history kind of deal. 4-2 off the street, and they were seething at the opportunity to give him the first round finish. And that's what really makes me the most upset about this is Rahiki lands a shot. That's fine. Ali Schmid goes down. He was not unconscious. He fell right on his back. He was ready to keep going. The referee dives on top of him, like stops the fucking fight. And I'm like, one, you ruin it for Rahiki because there was his highlight moment. Thankfully, he doesn't get it, because I think that would have felt worse in the end. Like, God, you really just brought this dude in here to get the biggest moment of his life just plastered of him getting finished by this guy kind of deal. So thankfully, it wasn't that. But the fact that they were so eager to give this dude a first round finish. And people are like, bro, he wasn't going to win. It's not about him winning. It's not about him getting up. It's giving the equal opportunity. If you really want to play spade as a spade, go back to Marwan Rahiki on the Contender Series. He got his fucking ass whooped in that first round. Arguably should have been stopped. If you give him the 2 seconds that you gave Ali Schmid, he's not even in the fucking organization right now. So the fact that you don't give Ali Schmid, for one, stepping up, for two, being, having the balls to do this, and you don't give him the opportunity to show that he belongs. That was what's criminal here, and that's what's bullshit. I think that is really key to know. They were seething at the opportunity to give Rahiki that first round finish because he's the prospect. Make sure he gets this first round finish, you know. But Ali Schmidt deserved an opportunity to fight. For all that he did for the organization, for them to throw him under the bus like that is fucked up. That's all
No,
I'm saying.
I mean, I think you're making some good points. I would probably take a little issue with the idea that the referee was colluding with the organization to stop it as
It's
early as he did. But you know,
yeah.
I know what I get you, Chase. I hear what you're saying, though. I understand the thought process. And I mean, like, you know, I said early stoppage because I did want to address this though, because in the chat and in the moment, I completely understand it. But upon rewatch, it's a lot more clear. People were saying that, oh, you know, he was wrestling with the ref. No, you were right. The ref basically teabagged him. I mean,
Yes.
he was. It looked like he was just rolling to his knees, and Beltron just sat down on top of him. You know, nuts to forehead. Basically, it was like kind of unfortunate in that regard. So yeah, to say that he was wrestling with the ref was, I think, a miscalculation or a misinterpretation of what was happening there. But yeah, I mean, you know, the points that you made earlier on about Schmidt and you know how he ended up in this position, completely tracking. I mean, like, you know, we knew that this was a setup fight from the jump, a 5-day notice fight. The record almost not even really kind of irrelevant because I mean, if it's a guy based on what you were going to be getting out of that pool at that time and a fighter like Rahiki, who you know is on the come up, there's no way that they're going to give him some like, you know, world ender guy who's just happens to be waiting for a fight. You know, it's just not
Well,
the logistics wouldn't work out for that.
you know, and the chat just made an opportunity. They should have done Georgie Mangoes, but
I
they
knew you
trained
would.
together. But
Yeah.
you know, then you just don't have a fucking fight for this guy. Like, guys, are we in the era where everybody has to have the fight? Like, again, if if Ilya and Islam, the fight is booked, and 4 days notice we have Ilya with nobody to fight. Are you guys really like? Can we just not have
No,
him fight somebody? Like,
and look, no, you make a great point. And look, I know that we have some amazingly awesome Australian friends and fans, and I, you know, much love to you guys, Australia, New Zealand. Really appreciate you guys always. And you know, this is not a knock on your region in the slightest, so don't take it this way. But I do think that if you look at it from a global perspective, because Australia and New Zealand are on the other side of the world, they feel like whenever the shows are in that region, they have to stack it for those fighters. Now, I'm not saying they stack it as in like, oh, just give them easy fights and let them get wins at home. That's not how it goes down there necessarily. But you make a fantastic point, Chase. Why did this guy have to fight on that card? Because he trains in Australia, and you know that's where the card is. That's not a good enough reason. That's not a good enough reason to tee this guy up for another, you know, just a potential highlight win. I mean, like you know, if you're trying to say this dude is earning his way up and not being hot shotted, that's certainly not how it goes. And if he is being hot shotted, then you already know what's going on here. What's the point of this fight? You know, you might as well just tick the check on his record. Be like, okay, well, if he was 8, now he's 9. Like, we don't even need to do this. You know?
yeah, I just feel bad for Ollie because he didn't deserve that. You know, I mean, he signed up for it. I get it, but like they clearly had somebody that they wanted to prop up, and they used this dude in his mind. This is the biggest opportunity of his life. In reality, this was you to get set up, brother. Like they played you really dirty. Like I hate to break it to you, you made a really good payday. Probably you're the biggest that you've gotten, but it wasn't good enough for realistically you just ruined your pro MMA career. Like you were 4-2. You probably could have went off and had like a 4 fight win streak, then got on contender series. 4-3 now, you've already lost in the UFC. Brother,
Yeah.
you're not I'm sorry. Like it's not
And
looking good.
for sure. No, you absolutely cooking. And to address Hydra, shout out to Hydra coming in. But to address his point, yeah, dude, you know, he's at a stage of his career that we know that people want to see him fight, but that doesn't automatically guarantee you a spot in the home country because of that. He could easily have had a spot on, he could easily have had put in that fight on the upcoming card. You know, that's not in the home region against a better competition there or a more appropriate competition. Like you just be like he will earn the ability to fight in front of the home crowd over the course of his fighting career. You don't just grant that to him because he's on a rocket, you know, to the moon right now.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is because it really comes down to marketability. Of course, I mean it is business. You know, Michelle Montague, she just fought last week.
That's a good point.
Rahiki could have been on next week's card.
Yeah.
He could have, if you could have gave him 2 weeks. Oh my God, look, now he's on a fucking numbered event with all these other people. You could have just slid that fight in there somehow, or just dropped some fucking bum ass fight off of that. If you really want Rahiki to be seen, like it's just unfortunate. I hate that, and Josh Van, I think, is another good example. Is like, it's unfortunate that he doesn't get to earn the victory in the way that I think he should have.
Right.
Rahiki, he would have got the first round finish. He would have beat this dude, no big deal. The early stoppage, I don't really like, but I really wish that it wouldn't have been somebody who was so inexperienced in the sport that, yeah, you were going to finish him in the first round.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I don't know what the odds were on this fight, but I mean, like, whatever they were not stacked enough in Rafiki's favor. I mean, there's no amount of numbers that you could put in, behind that minus that would have made sense for this fight. But
yeah,
just to address a couple of the other things that I noticed, because that's really like what you said, basically. I mean, you're 100% correct on all of the assessments, but because we kind of knew that that's what this was, I was more looking at this from the perspective of like, what can I take away data wise about this fight? And I go back to my original points. Like, Rahiki was certainly aura farming in this fight. Spin kick city over here. You want to talk about trying for the highlight. That was all of what that was. I mean, this dude was going for a spinning wheel kicks multiple times, feeling himself early. Commentary even saying, oh, he's looking directly through this opponent. Duh, of course he should be. I mean, why would he not be in that mental space? But I said that like the way that he was fighting, at least in this fight, he cannot fight this way against any level above this. Like he is fighting chin out. That the head back defense that you were talking about, that was certainly on display. Someone will have the reach to catch him with that. And then a lot of this was just shadow dancing until he could find that uppercut. That's fine against this level of competition. If he thinks that he is going to be a person that can pull that off against any level above this, you're going to be in for a very rude awakening. And I hope that that's not the case because he is a fun fighter to watch.
absolutely, I agree. Yeah, this it unfortunate performance that we got. I just wish I had a better feeling about it. Like, this just didn't it just doesn't do it for me. When I look at Rahiki's record and I see Ali Schmidt, and we're 5 fights away, I'm gonna be like, I remember he fought that guy who had 6 pro bouts. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and this is why we do this show. These fights are exactly why you pay attention to the details of these fights so that when you are going forward, all of the timeline all makes sense in your mind as to what you are seeing in the future.
100%.
All right. Well, let's keep this thing a moving here. Tim Elliott, he fought Steve Urseg. I really enjoyed this fight. I thought that I was not correct in my prediction, but I was very okay with that, considering what we saw in this fight. I said that this really showed the fight IQ of Steve Urseg in a tremendous way. This was a gradual figuring out of Elliott's style, eventually being taken over by Urseg. And that all speaks to the technicality that this guy has. Now, granted, it's a little bit basic, I would say. Now, I'm not even comparing him to Tim Elliott. I'm just saying Steve Urseg is kind of slightly one-dimensional. I would class him as not necessarily a knock when you do it well enough to make it work for you. I leave that as what it is. But with that being the understanding, relying as much on the fight IQ to figure out the puzzle that is in front of you and eventually finding the way forward to get the win, I thought that this was a tremendous performance for Urseg in that regard.
I agree with you 100%. This is probably the best performance that I've seen Steve Urseg have, other than a split decision with Pantoja, whatever you want to call it. But this right here, I said this at the beginning of the show, this is why technique exists. If you want to come out here and you want to be the wild man, that's fine. But as time goes on, there's a reason, scientifically, you're able to do jabs and 1-2s because it's effective, and you're able to do it without wasting as much energy as fucking doing all this shit. So as the fight went on, you see Tim Elliott gradually slow down, and what slowing down for him means is, I can't do my Dominic Cruz impression, I can't be in and out, I can't just be doing all these doing that shit. All that's out the window now. Steve Urseg is just, he's locked in. He's got a slick, it really is, and you've heard it before, a piston like shot. He really has it locked here, and it goes out and it comes back. He has a very solid boxing style. It crazy enough, it worked, because he was able to keep the game plan. I thought the wrestling was going to be more interesting. Tim Elliott had moments where he was able to just take him down, and then there was also a moment where Steve Ursek just fucking took him down. So it was all fair in this one. I thought potentially, as the fight ended, I thought, wow, I am really good at what I do, because I think split decision is actually going to happen here. I thought one of the judges might have gave it to Tim Elliott, to be fair, but I'm not mad. I thought this was a great, if not the best performance that I've seen from Steve Erceg. He was fighting like he wanted the fucking job. I tell you that. So
Yeah.
good on him.
Absolutely. I mean, and this, really presented a lot of challenges to him early. I mean, Tim Elliott with the awkwardness, again, a puzzle that had to be grasped by Steve. And round one squarely went to Tim based on him trying to figure it all out. He had difficulty with the range. The angles were very difficult to understand. A chat was saying that Tim Elliott is a combination of Dominic Cruz, like you said, and King Green. And I was like, that super tracks. I mean, he's got all these weird hand movements and all these things that are hard to understand. But you made the exact correct point that the problem with that style is that when it stops working, there is no plan B. And Tim Elliott, unfortunately, exemplifies that. You have a very good skill set when it's going your way, but once it's figured out, you got to be able to pivot. His own corner was saying that, good cornering for Tim Elliott, saying be more classic. Tim could not accomplish that task. So, as this fight wore on, this was really a solid realization by Urseg, who also kept his composure tremendously throughout all this. Tim was, he was doing a little bit of showboating, a little bit of jaw flapping and all this kind of stuff. He was getting his Kevin Holland on for a second, which I did not appreciate, but he in the moment it made sense, I suppose. And it was really up to Urseg to just lock in, not let any of that play into his mental game, and throw those clean shots. Urseg is really good at throwing clean shots, especially off of the stand-ups. You talked about the takedowns. That was one thing I really clocked. Urseg, anytime that he was getting taken down, he always got a receipt for it. When they would stand up, either it's an elbow or a straight shot. He had something locked in there to make sure that that if you try that again, you're getting something on the other end because I'm going to get up and you're getting one back. So I thought all of this tracked very, very well for Steve Urseg. I liked what I saw from him, and I certainly am not too glad that I underestimated him in this fight, even though I thought Tim Elliott did some good work early.
No, I definitely did not expect him to look this good. I'm not gonna lie. I thought Steve Erceg was on his way out, but I figured he was gonna do enough to get this performance. This was a lot better than I expected. I have never really been the biggest fan of Steve Erceg, and I will admittedly, say it. But after this performance, if he comes out here and he's as dialed in as this, I mean, this I could see a split decision loss to a champion. Like this is the performance that I can see. Like yeah, you could lose to a champion with this, but we have to see what we got to get you to win there. But we got to get you to win on that one. So
Well,
I
but
I, I still think he matches up well. Go ahead.
and so I was going to say though, the only issue that I have now, based on exactly what we're talking about, is does this not put him into a Bobby Knuckles kind of situation, current era Bobby Knuckles I'm talking about, where yeah, you can beat some of these lower guys, but is what you saw enough to be able to keep him in the conversation higher up in the division? I don't know where Steve is ranked currently, but it ain't top five, I would suspect, right? So, you know,
Correct. Yeah, it's probably not. I'll
so
double check real quick while you
yeah.
finish up.
So I mean, that's just really that's pretty much my point. Is it's like we're saying how great Steve Erceg looked in this fight, and I certainly stand by it. However, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things when you've got Tatsuro Taira above him, when you've got Joshua Van above him?
This was a really interesting fight because Steve Erceg is ranked 12, while Elliott was ranked 11th. So you can assume they're just going to flip.
And but I mean, that literally speaks exactly to my point. I mean, you've got guys in the lower part of the top 15. You got a whole mess of guys, and in one of the most competitive divisions at flyweight. What does this mean in the grand scheme of things going forward for Urseg is the question to me.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, no. So I thought this was really fun for Steve Erceg. Definitely after the last performances that kind of frustrated me, with Shamil and then Rahiki and then the fucking blobs. This one was a very good change of pace, and I really appreciated Steve Erceg for this performance.
Same, yeah. This is starting to. I mean, we already kind of were in it with the Rahiki knockout, even with being the circumstances. But this is really where the card starts to pick up into some really fun territory here. So let's keep it moving into the next one, where that continues. This is Beneil Dariush versus Quillen Salkeld. I mean, I think that the only thing you can say about this, that was my major note, aside from how this ended, was a million assholes all puckered at once, seeing Quillen Salkeld get flash dropped in that first round.
It's funny that you bring it up, and I haven't rewatched this one for reasons that I'll explain. Is when I was watching this live, once again, Paramount just decides to have issues. So
Ooh.
I did not actually witness him get dropped. It's nothing that I could sit here and have a visual memory of like, oh man, I saw Quillen get dropped by Benil. Never happened for me. So I'm cool on it. But he did end up winning. He did end up knocking him out. So it really doesn't even matter. Quillen, it sucks when when you have somebody who faces a really formidable opponent and then they beat him and then they give him an easier opponent and they beat him and it's like okay and then they give him an opponent that's not necessarily easier but still the same circumstance where it's like they're beatable and then they beat him and it's like whoa he fucking beat the guy that's been knocked out by all the grapplers in round one what like what I don't know it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunate that you didn't get to see the drop, but it was very quick. I think a lot of people kind of I think that there's a mixed set of like feelings about it. You know how impactful it was, how much it actually factored in later on, whatever. All I'm saying is that what happened happened. So you can look at it however you want to look at it. He did go down briefly. What I
Stats
said
didn't keep it so
that's wild. That's really crazy if that's the case. But we know what happened. The people know. Either way, so what I said about it, though, is that Salkiel did some solid takedown defense after getting dropped. He got back to his feet, hung in there, wrestling with Beneil Dariush, who's supposed to be that guy. I mean, that's one of the things that he hangs his hat on is being Mr. Wrestler, Grappler, Submission guy. So Quillen able to hold his own against somebody who is pretty well regarded in that realm, at least. And then the interesting thing to me was, Beneil continuing to keep control for a little while, but I don't know if Quillen was just either playing possum or if he just found the opening. I think it might have been a little bit of both, perhaps. But after Dariush realizes that the wrestling is going nowhere, he had him clinched on the cage for quite some time. He disengages to throw an elbow. Quillen gets that space and just unloads the hands with Beneil on the cage. And I was like, bro, like I said, if you were springing a trap, you could not have sprung a better trap because that literally was all that it took right there. And then you saw some nice maneuvering from Quillen to finish during the finishing sequence, get the back, go follow it where it needed to be. All of the instincts correct for Quillen Salkild. So I liked the explosiveness of that because how many times do you see people, they get that distance and they're like, okay, well, what's my next move? No, Quillen had the answer. He was on Johnny on the spot with it. So I liked it.
yeah, he definitely showed no fear against Beneil, and he's keeping true to his name. He is a finisher. I really appreciate that. A lot of people sometimes they get to the performance where you're like, oh yeah, this is the fight where he's definitely going to finish him, and then they go to a 3 round boring decision. Or they gas out after 2 rounds. Anything like that. We've yet to see it from Quillen. He's still holding up. First round finish guy. I appreciate him for it. He's doing his thing. So we'll
Yeah.
see what's up next. But I don't know, Bobby Green next. What are we thinking?
I mean, he called out Gamrot. I don't know if that's going
Oh,
to
I do
happen.
remember that. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, grappler again, kind of thing. Does that, it'd be nice to kind of see him against a striker, perhaps. But if it's going to be that, it's going to be that. I'm not too mad at it. Again, we talked about it a little on the watch along. He's calling out a guy who's higher up than some of the other dudes who might have been more appropriate. You want the number. It makes sense. He's on it. He's got a rocket on his back. It makes sense. But I did say that I thought this might have been a slightly early stoppage as well, but Dariush was definitely doing his Anthony Smith impression. So,
Yeah, dude, he was lifeless, bro. I think he
yeah,
was actually done.
it could have been fair enough. But, I don't know. Maybe I just want to, get into my just bleed territory with some of these. But either way, I did think the last note that I had, and I just thought it was kind of funny, was Quillen watching the finish back on the big screen. And he was just like, yeah, that was sick. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I said too,
Boy, that was sick, mate. Now let's head out to the party and we're gonna get some drinks.
He's just like us, guys.
Yeah, he is. He truly is.
So there you go. Yeah, I mean, not too much else to talk about with this one. I mean, it was solid aside from that one drop. I mean, I don't know. I guess that would be my only thing that I could say as a note with all of this. You yourself can decide how much stock you put in the fact that he possibly potentially was dropped by Beneil Dariush. You take that going forward. Can he get dropped by a better guy? Can he get dropped by Gamrot? Gamrot's got a little bit of power in his hands. Not tremendous necessarily, but I'm just saying keep it in the back of your mind as a touch point for future knowledge.
Yeah, I like it though. It was a good 3 minutes, 3:30.
Yeah, exactly. Fine way to round this thing out, bringing us to the main event of the evening. Of course, Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. Look, man, I hate. I am certainly never one to be the "I told you so" guy. That is not how I operate. However, you know that I have been consistently. I have always been the guy who has said I have never been sold on Jack Della Maddalena. What we saw here, I think, is exactly what happens when you have Muay Thai applied to mixed martial arts tremendously, perfectly, I would say, perhaps, versus a dude who just is a little bit too one dimensional, maybe a little bit rude. But I said it about Steve Ursig. I think it somewhat applies here too. If Jack cannot get into the striking range or is not comfortable in the striking range, not comfortable taking a few shots to get into the pocket, this is what you end up with: a guy who's going to get kneed in the face a whole lot, leg kicked into oblivion. All of the things that you saw from Carlos Prates, I think, tracked very, very clearly based on what you know about Jack Della Maddalena, whether you wanted to believe it or not, when you wanted to acknowledge it or not.
What I think is interesting is this was round 3 is where it got, but this felt like a relatively quick finish. I mean, Carlos Prates knew exactly what he was going to do to win this fight. And what I think is interesting to note about that is you have a lot of finishers who will get that first round finish. They're first round finishers. But Carlos Prates looked really measured here. I mean, he took his time. He wanted to have a fight here. And Jack Della, I think I was a little correct when I said he's very tough. He's a lot tougher than I think people expect. I mean, dude, he got kneed in the fucking head like 6 times. I mean, that shit. Each time he got kneed, you could see him like step back and think like it might be time. It might be time to just call it. But he didn't. He kept going forward. He kept. I always love when a fighter, you know it's not going your way, and you're probably gonna lose. But hey, that's your part of the contract, brother. You can't win them all. You got to go out here and lose like a fucking Chad. And JDM, I think, is some people will clown him and they will talk. There's a very funny moment when he goes to the corner and he goes and the coach goes, don't and he's so, and I'm like thinking like, God, these are the things that people are going to clown him about, like he's a quitter, he's like but I think JDM, for what it's worth, man. I mean, you tried, brother. There was another funny part, really really funny part. So this just goes to show who the commentary crew is, right? So imagine you're sitting here, you got your fights up here, you got your little monitor in front. So they come out here and Herb Dean or whoever the fuck is the thing, they're talking about, all right, I want you guys to come out here and touch gloves, and then they don't. But if you watched, as you should be watching the fights, they touch gloves like 2 seconds before that, just not when Herb Dean said to do it. So the commentary crew was like, "Oh, no glove touch! Oh my God, this is gonna be crazy. We got bad blood going on." And it's like, yo, you're 2 fucking feet away. How did you miss? How did you miss it? Like, I don't know, bro. It's crazy.
True. Yeah. No, that element aside, I also wanted to be kind to Jack in this fight, honestly. I thought that he held his own against what is now becoming very clearly a title contender here. I mean, this is a guy who he did everything right. I had said I thought that Prates seemed a little too overconfident to beginning this fight. Like he seemed very, very comfortable in front of a power striker, someone who seemed a little overconfident, hands low, chin forward. But you know that the length of the limbs is really where he excels. I mean, whether it's a natural gift or just how he uses them is up to your interpretation. I said, luckily for Carlos, distance management and alien limbs are two of his greatest weapons. So he used those very effectively. And, Jack, he really did try to hang as long as he could with it. I thought that, halfway through round 1, Jack stopped pressuring. And I was like, I mean, I think that only seems to be what you could have had success with, is if you stayed in his face to limit the movement, cut the cage off, stop the dynamic, shifting of the weight that Prates does. And he just kind of didn't keep with the game plan. He also got a takedown in round 1, if I'm not mistaken. And then that just sort of stopped as well. I was like, it seemed like there were a couple of things where he pivoted to plan B, I guess because he was just getting tagged up. And look, Prates with some power, obviously that, it's understandable that you don't want to continuously be getting hit. But if you're pivoting to a plan B that has no path to victory, then you're kind of leading yourself into a foregone conclusion one way or another.
I agree with you. It's unfortunate that this was 3 rounds of a beatdown, really, for Carlos Prates. You said Jack held his own. I unfortunately don't agree with that. There
Well,
wasn't much,
he stayed in the fight, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
you know, but what I would say to that is, I saw Patty get his ass whooped by Justin for 5 rounds,
That's a good point.
and I get that's a different fight, Carlos Prates working the leg kicks. I mean, the way Jack went out, I mean, he at a certain point your legs just don't fucking work. It's another funny point is when he got to the corner and he's doing the the coach is like, "Don't it'll come back." It's like, brother, he's got 4 more fucking rounds of this,
Right.
like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
true. Yeah, I mean that is the note that I had, for later in the fight. Round 3, Jack just couldn't move.
yeah.
It's sad, because I said sadly for him because that's all that Protest does. I mean, he's just such a dynamic guy. Again, I go back to my original point. This is the embodiment of what happens when you take a Muay Thai base and apply it to MMA tremendously well. I mean, like, you have all of the striking that you get, the art of 8 limbs element of things. So you're getting the elbows, you're getting the knees, but you're also pairing it with movement that is, extremely dynamic, and then a wrestling grappling element. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's like, the greatest in that department of all time, but he's certainly well above average. You mix that all together, it's a deadly combination. And really, I think that, if we talked a little bit about one championship, if a guy like Rod Tang wants to come over and have any level of success, like, these are the kinds of guys that you need to look at as far as applying Muay Thai correctly. Because when you look at Carlos Prates, I wouldn't say that you necessarily see a Muay Thai fighter in the way that he moves. You know what I mean? Like, in an MMA application, you see it more in his striking, you see it more in the knees and the elbows. But that's what you have to do to be a mixed martial artist with a Muay Thai base. And I think that's really where Carlos Prates excels.
Carlos Prates, I mean, if what I would say is as a person who loves Muay Thai, I could not be more happy of somebody who's representing Muay Thai and becoming the top level striker,
Yeah.
because the weapons that Muay Thai enables you to have are very key to being a dominant striker, and very effective striker. And Carlos Prates is using all of his his damaging blows, elbows, knees, and this is what's really important. Carlos Prates is showing that not only when it came to the wrestling, it's fine. He got taken down, big whoop. He had a good time, but he did show, and he has continued to show that if the fight comes back to the feet against any wrestler, they need to be worried. And even if it's not just getting back to the feet, I mean, the knees themselves, you should be deterring wrestlers now with stuff like this. And I'm not going to say that it's set in stone, but I think we have seen, and this is out of Gary Morales, Buckley, Usman, I think Prates right here, I think we have maybe seen the best option to beat Islam. I'm not saying that he is going to, but I think the skill set, just the knees themselves, the way that he's able to throw his whole fucking body into him, elbows as well. That's what fucking cut Islam against Dustin, is he just finally threw one elbow in there. Imagine if 50 elbows are coming at him. I think, yes, the wrestling is still to be determined, but if he doesn't get subbed and it gets back to the feet, I do believe he is the one that could probably take Islam out. But
I mean, I think that it's a valid assessment of all of that. I mean, you're speaking to the things that Islam does exceedingly well, and they're neutralized by a style like this potentially. Whether that actually happens or not, of course, remains to be seen. But if you actually have some level of opposition to the major advantages that the pound for pound has, I think that puts you squarely in that conversation. In fact, I know a lot of people don't like DC very much, but I got to give him a shout out here. I had seen a tweet that was going around where DC said, "I don't think anybody would be too mad if Protest skipped the line and hopped over Ian Gary for the title shot." Just saying. I mean,
no, we would. We'd
you,
riot.
yeah, I'd say the Ian Gary fans of the world might, but after a
Well,
performance like this,
there's people out there who will tell you, and I was sitting in your stream a little bit. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus because we'll talk about, next week a little bit, but there's people out here who will tell you that beating Sean Brady is a very good thing in the division, and Michael Morales just knocked him out in the first round. I think it's rightful to say that he has his name in the hat, that Carlos Prates cannot jump him because he just lost to Ian Gary, who is, in my opinion, in the fucking hat as well.
yeah, no, Gary has to get it. I mean, like that, the tracking of everything makes perfect sense. sense. I don't think that it would be right, especially with the Shavkat situation being as it is. That Shavkat, unfortunately, seems like fading farther and farther into the rearview mirror by the day. So with the current makeup of everything, yeah, it has to be Ian Gary, and I'm not mad at that at all. I just think that I kind of have a pretty decent idea of how that's going to go in my mind, at least. Gary could change that course. But yeah, then after that, I mean, this is another one of those situations where it reminds me of a little bit at middleweight. Before we had said a couple of things needed to get sorted out, and then you can see what the rest shakes out as. That's basically what this is. And Carlos Prates not helping matters by any stretch, while he is sitting there on the microphone multiple times saying, Islam versus Gary, and I get the winner. I could see the organization, and Bisping having it in his earphone, like, don't say anything about that. We haven't announced that or anything. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think that they were super happy with Carlos Prates tipping the hand on that when they have not tipped it themselves. But it's the fans know.
True. Yeah, we'll see though. I'm very excited to see what's next. But Carlos Prates is thankfully still one of the biggest stars in the game right now. What is it about Brazilian stars? Like they're more not flamboyant, but enthusiastic about being in the spotlight rather than when you get like your Dagestanis. They don't really give a shit about the spotlight. They're just here for the sport. But you have your Alex Pereira, you have your Carlos Prates. They're here to fucking have a good time. They're here to have a good time and fight and go on about their life. I appreciate that a lot from them.
Yeah, you get a little bit of personality in some of these guys, and it's a fine thing. I think Carlos Prates is a cool guy. I mean, like,
Yeah.
he's definitely dude. He brought his mom out into the ring. I thought that was lovely. Yeah, he's hitting all the right points to me. So in addition to seeing a great performance, I like him as a person as well. I would like to see great things for him, and he is certainly solidifying that trajectory fight over fight.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess all of that being said, I mean, the last thing I did want to ask is, does this finally change people's perception of JDM, the perception that perhaps I have always had?
No, well, some people are going to jump ship, like always, when it comes to people who lose. But I think JDM, with the right opponent, I mean,
But
anything's
come on,
possible.
brother, with the right opponent, that's the qualifier that
Well,
should be making it
but there's a
exactly.
but there's a few people who could be that right opponent. It's not just like, oh yeah, he definitely has to fight this old person and get them out of here because that's the only person he could beat. JDM could beat other people. Like, bro, Sean Brady, like, come on.
But to
Like,
think that he would be elite.
if I wouldn't be surprised. Hear me out. I wouldn't be surprised if Shavkat finally makes his way back and Jack Della is going to be the one that fights him. Because I think, although Jack Della is not the best option to fight people like this, he is somebody who will say yes. Listen. Ian Gary is another example of sometimes you just got to say yes because nobody else is going to. Nobody's going to fight Shavkat, and they didn't, and they still won't. Maybe there's going to be those people who want to fight the Shavkat on bum knees, but I think Jack Della might be the guy who's going to say yes to this.
All right. Hey, I don't dislike that actually, and hopefully Shavkat does end up coming back at some point. I don't know if you saw that most recent picture of him with his legs looking rather atrophied. So
Mhm.
hopefully he gets back to full snuff at some point soon. But
Yeah,
either way, won't
yeah,
change it for me. But
well, and Lachlan makes a great point. It's like welterweight is very stacked. I mean, he is still better. Usman questionable. Bilal obviously he beat him. So it it is what it is. But I think Jack Della, I think each and every time that Jack Della wins, and obviously the losses are a different story, but when he wins, I think he's going to be always proving people wrong. Because I think every time he loses, people are going to be like, there it is. That's the reason. He sucks right there. But like, not all fighters are going to win. He's only lost twice,
yeah, but I've
He
been
has
saying it during the wins.
I
So
mean, I get it. I get it. But like, I think fighting through some adversity, I think he'll make a believer one day. I think
all
he
right.
will.
Hey, it remains to be seen, and I am always looking to be made a believer of. So
Mhm.
all right, very good. Well, that does bring us then to the end of UFC Fight Night, Della Maddalena versus Prates. Chase, after talking it through, what's your final thoughts on this thing?
This was pretty fun, man. I enjoyed getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting ready to stream, and it was fun. I really liked a lot of the fights that were here. I made some new fan favorites. Wes Schultz masterclass incoming another week, and yeah, I'm just very happy that I got to experience it with the bros.
Yeah, likewise, man. I too had a great time with this one. Thank you very much to everybody who hung out on the watch along for this, because that was one of my main concerns, is being up at 4 o'clock in the morning and being, having to talk into the ether for this card. But it was a great active chat. So appreciate you guys there and appreciate you guys here watching us right now. That being said, let's,
We
yeah.
got to go through the picks.
Oh, yes, we do. I always forget the picks, but we certainly need to. Go for it, Chase.
Okay, so out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We had 13 fights. Does that sound
Yeah,
right?
that is correct.
Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you had gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 correct. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we tied on this card. I was insanely upset about this, considering that this was one that I actually predicted somewhat okay for the first time in forever, and it didn't get me anywhere closer to catching up with you. God damn it.
Yep. So the totals are 118 to 98.
Oh my God. All right. Well, another week of stagnation, I suppose, but at least it's not a backslide, so I can hang my hat on that. And of course, we have UFC 328 Chimaev versus Strickland coming up. This is taking place in the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. So always a chance on this card that this is my week to shine.
Oh, brother.
Starting off this thing, yeah, Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. I mean, we've talked about it. Seems to be. Let me at least just say this to start this off. A lot of people talking about this fight. I guess it's because of somewhat of the popularity of these two guys. Perhaps it's because of this whole trumped up pre-fight thing that they've got going on. There's a whole lot of animosity between these two. They're not doing a face-off for this event now. Whatever with all of that. I still to this day do not really care about this fight. I don't think that Sean Strickland should be in this fight. Khamzat Chimaev has been very inactive. That's another thing that I don't like. So I'm coming from the perspective purely like putting all of the bullshit aside and just looking at this fight like purely objectively. And that it does not excite me all that much. So that being said, Chase, what are your thoughts?
I have picked Sean Strickland before in times that, he has been the underdog and he probably should not have won. And rightfully so. I thought he was the person to win. That's why I picked him. I'm not picking him because I think that he's the best fighter ever. I'm not picking him because I like him. I picked him that time because I thought he would beat Fluffy Hernandez. Now this fight is different because Khamzat is the greatest wrestler in the UFC history. I mean, it really just comes down to it. There has never been a double leg like his. And I think that is the difference between what Sean Strickland has experienced, which he has been taken down by wrestlers before, and people that are not necessarily wrestlers as well. But the difference is they are not Khamzat. And if they were able to get you down, I mean, Hamzat might not let you up, dude. This dude, he is the one of the only dudes that I can tell you for fact that when he shoots a double leg, he will shoot so far into it that he's down on his knees. But the difference is when other people get to their knees and they're shooting, they just push you forward and there's nothing left to it. Hamzat has this extra level where he just takes your fucking back. Like as soon as he gets close, he's just able to just take your back and he has a grip around you and he just picks you up and he just takes you wherever the fuck you. He is going to probably have a lot of success in the wrestling early. I'm just going with what I think is logically the better answer here. Khamzat Chimaev, 15-0. Listen, when you look at a record like 27-0, 29-0, it's like eventually, yes, he would lose. 15-0 is not breaking the realm of he needs to lose. 18-0 for Shara Bullet or whatever. It's like, yeah, he's going to have to lose eventually. 19-0 for Mosvar. He's going to have to lose eventually. Hamzat's not really there yet, in my opinion. I don't think the stars are aligning for him to have to lose here,
I mean, and that's it's kind of almost a superstitious thing to begin with, anyway. But when you have more of a case for that mindset when the skill set is not that of Khamzat Chimaev. You made the perfect point leading up to this. What exactly, like again, the path to victory thought process here? Sean Strickland does a lot of things that play directly into Hamzat's hand, in my opinion. I mean, all like Hamzat in and of himself has all of the advantages just by being who he is. But then think about what Strickland does in fights. He Philly shells. I mean, that's a gift to Hamzat Chimaev. You know, you turn your shoulder to him, he takes your back. He does the high knee with the, you know, the hands out guard. That's a leg that you are gifting to him. There's a meme that was going around that says if Sean Strickland does this, you know, this stance, he's going to be down in round 1 and out. And I was like, that tracks tremendously well. There are too many things that Sean Strickland in his natural abilities does, there's natural game planning that he does that play directly into Hamzat's hands. And as you said, there is no one like Hamzat Chimaev in the UFC. I mean, I think that that's pretty clear at this point. You want to talk about the definition. I think people use this term kind of in a meme sense, but a lot of people throw it around like a marauder. Like, I mean, that's what Hamzat Chimaev is. He runs in, gets his hands on you, and then he does whatever the fuck he wants to do. So Sean Strickland does not possess a skill set that to me counteracts that in any way. The only thing that you could say is possibly what we had been talking about earlier. If Sean can catch him with a knee on the entry, maybe there's a little bit of something there for him. But that's the only thing I can think of besides a couple of, you know, decent hands up top. You think Hamzat Chimaev is going to care about your pitter patter striking, brother? I mean, no, I'm not saying that that's all Strickland does, but, you know, to think about where a fight starts, how Strickland starts a fight. Do you think that point number 1 Strickland versus point number 1 Hamzat is at all a comparable matchup? I just don't see it.
So you're taking Hamzat.
Of 10,000%, I'm taking Hamzat Chimaev.
All right, I am as well.
All right, very good. Moving on to, I think, one of the more interesting fights, and I'm certainly interested to hear your thoughts considering your fandom of both of these men. This is Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira. What are you thinking here, brother?
Well, to start, Japan has never had a champion. So Tyra has the weight of the entire nation on his shoulders. He could do something very, very special. The fact that it's not in Japan happening is pretty crazy. But Josh Van, and I truly believe this, and you got to have faith sometimes. Um, this guy's gonna be something you guys have never seen before. You know, not in a sense that he's just never gonna lose the belt, but like at age 24, he's already the champion. He's already putting up Hall of Fame striking numbers. He's already going to be the leading striker in the division. You know, he's already beaten the number 1 guy who's led the division, you know, for the past 4 years, you know, not even Pantoja, just talking about Roy Val at that point, but the 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 activity that he showed, that little run that he had is going to go down as why he's, you know, one of the greatest. And I think his legacy is just beginning. You know, he's going to beat Tatsuro Taira, and I think just having the extra time on the clock is going to prove to be Josh's advantage. I mean, I have never once seen this dude fight and thought, yo, he's slowing down. You know, he has never taken his foot off the gas. He normally takes round 1, slows it up a little bit. Round 2, he comes in and he's ready to kill. Like, and I truly believe Josh Van with 4 and 5 rounds, he's gonna be able to finish Tatsuro. It's gonna be teeps to the body, probably just like Ray Tsuruya. He had to fake the body. You know, he had to fake the nut kick. That was a TKO in my opinion, man. I mean, I can see same thing happening late in this fight. I love Tatsuro though, but shout out Josh.
I know. Yeah, this is a tough one because Tatsuro Taira is so good at what he does. You know, we talk about the touch point fight, I would call it, with him and Brendan Royval really showcasing such a high level across the board and showcasing why I do think that Taira will probably eventually be a champion one way or another.
Gotta
But
hope.
yeah, I know. Same. I really do. I definitely hope for him. I mean, like he's put the work in to deserve that. But Josh Van, I think, has shown. I mean, he has answers for a lot of what comes at him, if not everything that comes at him up until this point. That's why I'm so upset. I mean, and granted, it does not matter in this fight, you know, what I'm going to say, but I say it because I think we all sort of feel it in the back of our minds. I'm upset that Josh Van has the belt the way that he has it now, and I'm upset that Pantoja is not this fight currently right here because I would like to have seen Josh Van prove to the world definitively that he could beat Pantoja to be the actual rightful 100% champ. Now, I'm not of the mindset that he is a fluke champ or anything like that. I know that's a lot of people's opinions, but you know what happens in a fight is what happens in a fight. He won that fight. You know, we can litigate that at a different time. My point is that Josh Van has shown that he deserved to be in the fight with Pantoja. He won that fight. that counts for something. We've seen Tatsuro Taira lose before. I mean, he had, he's a dude who still is in his formative era to an extent. I think that I mean, he's only got the one loss, but it is, it's a loss that counts. I don't know. I mean, like maybe it's not tracking 100% what I'm saying when it comes to that. But my point is that Josh Van, I do think, has a lot of elements that will allow him to have answers. And that really is what it comes down to in a fight like this. You have to have the answers for what Tatsuro Taira is going to bring to the table. I think Josh Van has those.
So you're taking Josh Van.
I tentatively am. And I mean, if this becomes the situation where Tatsuro Taira is able to be the guy that shows that he's got the levels of wrestling that is going to be able to give Josh those problems, then fair play to him. And I'll be very happy if that's the case. But I go with what I know a lot of the times, and I have seen greatness out of Josh Van.
There you go. I love it.
All right. Both going with Josh Van then.
Yes, we are.
All right, we're locked in. All right, next up, perhaps this will be our defining difference here. Alexander Volkov is fighting Waldo Cortez Acosta. What do you think?
I think this one, and I've doubted Waldo Cortez Acosta plenty of times. I will probably be doing it again here. And I hate to say it because Waldo is fun. He is cool. He has won his fights. The ones that I thought he would win, he had won. I thought Robellis would beat him, and he beat Robellis. That was definitely a fluke in my opinion. But we all should have known better. But this is the actual real Robellis. Like, this is somebody who has 50 pro MMA bouts at 6'7" with an 80-inch reach, which by the way, these are scandalous as hell. Waldo and Volkov, there is no way they have only a 2-inch difference in their reach. That's just not even fucking possible. But Volkov is so fucking experienced. He was able to take the shots from Tom Aspinall up until Tom Aspinall had to rugby tackle him and submit him, So I don't think Waldo's going to knock out Volkov. I think Volkov is going to show us again. Guys, remember, he just beat Surreal Gone. Like,
taking the words right out of my mouth. I mean, think about the timelines here, people. Had that decision gone how it should have gone, and everybody knows that that was the case there, had that gone correctly, the entire paradigm at heavyweight changes. So, unfortunate that it didn't, but we all know the truth. Volkov, I would say, is one of the most improved heavyweight fighters, and it's crazy to say that over the course of 50 fights, but sometimes it takes that, perhaps. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, this is a world-class fighter here. Waldo, as you said, he's a very active fighter, and I give him a lot of credit for having the wherewithal to know that this is what it takes to, get yourself to the position that he is in currently. All the respect to him. But we saw him have problems against Pavlovich, and not Pavlovich on the right side of when Pavlovich was dangerous. That, to me, tracks.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. Listen, I know Volkov rocks the braids now because he's got longer hair, but I am ready to see a vintage Volkov hair combing and get some shit done.
True. Well, I thought you were going to take the Waldo bait, but apparently we're going same on this one as well. So I guess we're locked in 3 for 3 right now.
I'll give a shout out to the Mank in the Discord. MMA Hive, you know the deal, but he is going to take Waldo, and I am ready for a sweet victory on this one.
True that. And I will give a shout out to Ram in the chat. Shout out to you, Ram. Thank you for being here, brother.
And Hydra, we didn't actually shout you out, but you've been chatting for a minute.
I shouted him out
Okay,
earlier.
good.
All right, good deal. Okay, well then that takes us to the next one here. Sean Brady is fighting Joaquin Buckley. I mean, I think this is another one that people might be taking a little bit of bait on. I don't know if you're going to take it or not, but Sean Brady, man, you don't think that he is an elite, fighter, but he is a dude that has a defined skill set, and one that we literally just saw Joaquin Buckley have tremendous problems with in his last fight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. He got wrestled. Sean Brady can wrestle. My thing is, though, Sean Brady he has this inability to take shots. I mean,
True.
Bilal TKO'd him, guys. Bilal Muhammad TKO'd him.
On the feet.
But that's fine. Joaquin Buckley, though, the thing that stands out to me is he's not the biggest power striker. He's not necessarily doing all the craziest stuff, but the one knockout that he does have is against one of the most elusive strikers that we've seen in the game. So him tracking down someone as elusive as Wonder Boy versus someone like Sean Brady, I think it's a way easier target. Brady don't move his fucking head. So I think Buckley is going to have tremendous success on the feet, and I hate to say it because people want to talk about this win streak that Brady was on. Bilal TKO'd him, and then he went on this crazy win streak. But like, guys, he's unfortunately just not that guy. I mean, I hate to say it, but like Kelvin Gastelum, Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, like it's not that good of a fucking run, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Michael Morales, when it comes to the top prospects, he has the least amount of skills and he gave you the most problems, like that's the unfortunate part is Prates and Ian Gary, Shavkat included, like these are the guys that are lumped around Michael Morales, and all Michael Morales is known for is just knocking people out in the first round. That's all he's ever been able to do, kind of deal. So Sean Brady, dude, I you weren't able to mix it up against Michael Morales. You might be able to have some success against Buckley, but I'm still thinking that Buckley's going to have the success because it's just not your game, brother. You're a wrestler that doesn't move his head in the stand up. It seems like.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I understand the where you're coming from with all of that. I think the difference though is that Buckley is a little gremlin, as Sean Brady is also about comparable size. Michael Morales is a giant monster, and again, we saw Buckley have tremendous difficulty with the one thing that Sean Brady is very good at. So, I mean, granted, yeah, could he get caught? Of course, 3-round fight. I mean, over the course of a fight, it certainly could happen. But I think that if Sean Brady just can keep the wherewithal to not let himself get into a position that Buckley can be successful, which Buckley is not Morales when it comes to the striking, I think that he will have the success that we know that he can. It's sad to say because I do like Buckley. I think he's fun, and he's certainly wily when he has the ability to. Like when you let Buckley have free roam of the cage, he will be pretty dynamic in his movement, and he uses his smaller size to his advantage, kind of getting undershots and stuff. We saw that in the Wonder Boy fight. That all being said, I think that Sean Brady can track him down and get his hands on him. I don't see Buckley having the runway that he needs to be effective to overtake this fight. That's my thought process. And you brought up the win over, the tracking down of Wonder Boy. I would say that like I wanted to dispute that, but I would say that like Wonder Boy at his current age, or the age that he was, and the state of his career as he was when he fought Joaquin, is probably somewhere comparable to Sean Brady's like skill set. You know what I mean? I like not necessarily like the skill set, like as far as the actual like activity, but like just where they both lie on like the good meter, so to speak. I don't know. They're not one-to-one comparisons, apples to oranges, but I think that it kind of tracks based on Brady having just been knocked out. So I don't know. All of this is leading up to me going with Sean Brady.
We're gonna have to not let that slander pass. You just no, brother. No. Wonder Boy is, even at his current age, I still think is levels above where Sean. No, listen, Sean Brady, he got TKO'd by fucking Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad is going against Gabriel Bonfim at this point. Gabriel Bonfim arguably robbed Wonder Boy.
Yeah, but he
Wonder
was a
Boy,
champ in between there.
that's fine. You know who else Wonder Boy went against and actually lasted a decent amount of time with? Shavkat Rakhmonov. He actually showed that he was willing to develop skills late in his career. He actually got up from a fucking takedown or two against that dude. He got submitted. Yeah, Shavkat had like a broken foot. He always fucking does. But the point is, Sean Brady probably puts up a little less of the performance against these people, is my opinion on that. But
Fair enough, but this is Joaquin Buckley that we're talking about here, who just proved that Kamaru Usman's knees are still intact. So
there's actually a fight in between there that I think is important too, right? Not in between it, but before that, you have Colby, right? I mean, Colby didn't have that much success in the wrestling against Joaquin Buckley either.
Colby
So
sucks.
I agree, but he's still wrestling. I think Sean Brady sucks, and the wrestling might still stand. But like, I don't know if Buckley. I'm going Buckley.
All
Let's
right,
keep it that way.
look. There you go. And after you've heard the two sides of the argument. Perhaps some better stated than others. I don't think I necessarily made my points tremendously well there, but you heard what we had to say. Let us know who you think is more correct by liking the individual channels that we stream to, and we'll see who gets the more upvotes, perhaps.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, that being said, then we're locked in on that one. This one is a different one. This is King Green versus Jeremy Stevens. Who the fuck is that guy back again? What I mean, cool to see him back. This they seem to just bring Jeremy Stevens back at random. It's like all of a sudden you just he pops up. Mason Jones needs an opponent. There he is. Apparently King Green needs an opponent. He's Johnny on the spot. Why is he here? I don't know, but he's here nonetheless, and he's fighting King Green.
The thing that I mean, you brought it up already. I mean, this guy went against Mason Jones. This is the fight that actually made us realize that Mason Jones is someone to look out for.
True.
Now, Mason Jones has this thing where he has to get beat up, before he actually turns up. So, Jeremy Stevens having success in that fight, do you want to put stock into it? I think you should, but I can understand why you wouldn't. The thing about Bobby Green, though, and you actually said it a little bit ago, his style is if it works, it works. And when it doesn't, I mean, it's a brutal time to fucking watch because he's going to lose bad kind of deal. So if Jeremy Stevens has the method to win right from the jump, I mean, this is going to be quick. It's either Bobby Green gets fucking butchered or he fucking makes a mockery of Jeremy Stevens, and we sit here and say, yeah, who the fuck is that guy for getting styled on by Bobby Green for 3 rounds? Because if you think about what happened to Jim Miller at 300, he beat the fuck out of that dude. And hands down. So if we see something like that, because Bobby Green he's a veteran, he is a hard code to crack, at the end of the day. But do you want to be the part that leans on technique over everything, or do you think that King Green is going to be able to get the one up here? I'm going to take Jeremy Stevens. I think he's the veteran. I don't think he's going to let the talking get in the way. And just because I said the same thing with Urseg, technique exists for a reason. Bobby Green, hands down, chin up in the air. I think it's a recipe for disaster, of course.
No, I mean, you really took all of the words out of my mouth on this one. Jeremy Stevens went off to bare knuckle boxing and had a pretty good run there. This is not a guy that's been out of the organization, just sitting on the couch. He's been pretty active. I always thought he was a really good striker back in the day before he left the UFC. I always had a good amount of respect for him. The Mason Jones fight, I thought, reintroduced him to the world as someone that you should be putting more stock into. Being on the wrong end of a Connor meme perhaps changed the correct trajectory of his career in a weird way, but that does not take away any of the actual boots on the grounds, the nuts and bolts of what he does in fights. And you saw that in the Mason Jones fight. I mean, Bobby Green, it's one of two ways that these fights go. This guy was just fighting Lance Gibson Jr. not too long ago. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, this is we're talking about different levels of the competition here. I think Jeremy Stevens is the wiser choice here. I don't like picking against Bobby Green because I am a fan, and I am always happy when his weird shit works out and he gets to blow the mist above the air and shower the referees and whatnot. But Jeremy Stevens is battle tested, and I think that he should that should be respected at this point.
100%. I definitely agree. We'll go with Jeremy Stevens.
I think so. All right, moving on down the line. Oh my God, I did not know that I think I might have known that this fight was booked. Maybe it was booked a long time ago and I had forgotten about it. But Ateba Gautier is fighting Ozzy Diaz, and good Lord, you want to talk about teeing up the champ over here. But we did say that. We did say that exact same thing the last time Ateba Gautier fought our other Russian friend there. Pulaev, exactly. Andre Pulaev. And that turned out to be a lot closer of a fight than anybody was ever anticipating. So, Chase, what do you think about Ozzy Diaz's chances against Ateba Gautier?
I think Pulaev, I found some new respect for him after the last performance about with Gautier, and I want to have the benefit of the doubt that he's a little bit better of an option to face Gautier because he does have, a counter striking style. He stays on the outside and he did not, want to get hit by big old bombs. Ozzy Diaz, unfortunately, is the Russian head first kind of fighter. And I think there's just no reason for me not to believe in Gautier still. I mean, one performance where hopefully he learns from it. He's a young guy, 35 years old as his opponent, and he's already lost 3 different times. I would say Gautier just takes this one, and until I not see it happen, then I'll be doubtful. But as of right now, Gautier is good. He's good to go.
Yeah, I mean, prior to Ozzy Diaz's last win, I was very firmly of the camp that he was not going to be sticking around. He had been taking some pretty solid losses. He seemed like a dude who did not have a full on solid basis for even being in this sport. I hate to say, I'm really not trying to be personally mean to the guy. It's just what I was observing in his fights. It just didn't seem like it was there for him. And then after he won his last fight, he was on the microphone saying, I will be the man that I believe that I am meant to be. I'm going to, and it's just like, dude, you did not sell me based on what I saw in the fight. So, I mean, like, I've just never been sold on Ozzy Diaz. He's proven to me too many times that he is very beatable, and Ateba Gautier is a fucking nightmare. So, I mean, again, Pulayev may be the guy who was able to defy that a little bit, still lost the fight though. So I got to get you same like what you said. I go with what I know a lot of the times here, and I know that Ateba Gautier can knock a motherfucker out, and Ozzy Diaz is rife for the knocking out.
Well, I mean, if you want to just go down the recent history, so the only two losses to UFC competition that Mr. Ozzy Diaz has faced, Joe Pyfer lost by KO, TKO round two, and then Zhang Minyang. So there's your two power punchers, the only two that he's faced basically, and they fucking mopped him. So
Yeah.
yeah, what can you say?
Right. And I mean, the the Piper loss now, I mean, for better or for worse, kind of ages somewhat well, but really just to show that that is a caliber that you should probably, be looking at Teba Gautier as potentially being at some point based on where his trajectory is. He's earlier in his career, but the way that they are wanting to push him based on what they think he's capable of, these are the exact type of wins that litter your record going up, up, up the way he has been. So,
True.
I mean, now granted, Piper, you can, you can kind of gauge where you think that all of that shakes out based on who he fought and where those people are at in their careers. But Teba Gautier and Ozzy Diaz are the exact right moment for the collision that is happening here. So I think it all tracks for Teba Gautier here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we are in lockstep yet again on that one. Okay, this is going to be an interesting one here. Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov, our dude from Bellator, our Ukrainian king.
I'm going to this one is interesting, and I do like Amosov, but what I will say is I think there might be potential that people will see him 29-1, look, good record coming into the organization, coming off a submission win. Yoel Alvarez, there've been some sketchy, not sketchy, but some riddled stuff in his past with some weight misses and moving to 170, whatever the case may be. But the fact is, he does have UFC experience and plenty of it against high level competition. I can't help but think that Yoel Alvarez is going to win, and I'm not necessarily saying that because I'm in love with the dude and he's one of my favorite fighters. The last performance, I'll be the first to tell you, him sitting on Luque's head for the final 4 fucking minutes of that fight was awful, was awful. But this fight right here, I think, oof, at welterweight, man, we still haven't really seen what Yoel is going to
That
be.
that was
That's really the
literally,
question.
yep, that was the big thing I was going to mention, is that everything that you said was tracking. Joel Alvarez was one of my absolute favorite fighters for a long time here. I was like, this is the guy that I'm hanging my hat on when he was at the lower weight. He moved up and things have just not seemed to be exactly the same. Now, I was in Tampa, saw him get a beautiful knockout victory. I was like, I'm sold, brother. I'm to the moon with this guy. And then we see his fight with Vicente Luque. Granted, he should have won that fight by knockout potentially, right? I mean, that's kind of the narrative from that one. So you could say, oh, Yaroslav Amosov, we haven't seen him get his chin tested the way that Joel Alvarez might test it, but can he survive that, take it into later rounds, and make this a very grudge matchy kind of affair with Joel?
So funny thing, just because there's always some level of history here. So the guy Amosov has lost to, his name is Jason Jackson. He's from Jamaica, and it's pretty crazy to think that his second fight ever in 2012 was against Colby Covington, and he lost by unanimous decision. But so wherever you wanna rank that, I don't know, but
That's
I'm
about, it's a decade and a half ago.
true. But either way, the point is, I think my opinion on this one, and this is just a recent thing that I've seen. Shamil was one of them. Bekuev was another one. We have some of these guys who aren't necessarily built for it. It seems like, and Azamat Murzakanov was another one. They go through this whole regional run, and it seems like they were maybe getting some extra treatment, I would say, than their opponents. I think Amosov might fall into the same category where it might get just a little too much for him, and he might. I'm not saying he's going to go out here and fold, but we might see that there was maybe more to the story than him just being 29-1. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue that I have with this is that his UFC win is over Neil Magny, and of course, you know how big of a fan I am of Neil Magny. However, I think that even with the decline in quality that we saw with Alvarez at welterweight, I still think that he is a level above Neil Magny. I think that should be kind of an understood thing, right? An understanding that people have of him is that maybe he's not ending worlds like he was at the lower weight, but even with the decline, he still retains a lot of the elements that made him good. And also he could still just be feeling the weight out, still be getting himself situated there and, needed a fight or two to really settle into the higher weight. Amasov, he's very crafty on the ground. He could potentially make this wrestling grappling kind of fight. That could be a little bit of problems for Alvarez, but he's still going to be the guy that's going to have the power in the hands. And I think that if he's landing elbows, if he's able to do some good defensive striking in those situations, there is still a path to victory for him. So I like Amasov. I think it's great that he's in the UFC. I was happy to see him. Obviously, he's got a great story with the whole Ukrainian war element of everything. This fight, I'm still going to back the Alvarez horse, I believe.
I love it. Yeah, I'm definitely taking Yoel as well.
All right. Well, we are in lockstep again. Oh, good Lord. Who put this fight together? This is Grant Dawson versus Mateusz Rąbecki. Now, granted, we say that like Mateusz Rąbecki is out here winning all of these crazy wars that he is in. Not always the case, but he will go to war, and Grant Dawson is not a warrior.
And that's exactly what it comes down to. This is the same situation as Sean Brady. I mean, you have a guy who you can tell is very skilled. He's very athletic. He wants to compete, but when the going gets going, I mean, he just falls down. Yeah, he just puts his hands on his head and falls down, and then that's just the leading to the end of the sequence. I know, listen, getting punched, we've seen a lot of people get punched and knocked out and unconscious, but brother, Bobby Green did not fucking slump you, like it wasn't like you went unconscious. Like, bro, he hit you in the jaw and you just fell to the ground. And then when you go look at what Manuel Torres did, Manuel Torres had knocked out some people in some brutal fashions, by the way. Grant Dawson, he barely fucking grazed you, brother. And again, you felt like I'm not trying to say it in a ragging way. I'm just trying to be real about it. Like, it's not your strength to go in here and try to have a war with people. And Rebechki is the type of dude that's going to give you a fucking war. He fucking beat Miktabek Orabai. There's just no fucking chance that if he beats that guy, he's not beating Grant Dawson. That's just the way that I see it.
Yeah.
Mateusz Rebechki is one of the scariest fighters that I can name in the UFC. And Grant Dawson taking the fight, hats off to you. I give you plenty of respect, but I don't think you are ready for what you signed up for. Go look at Miktabek's face after that fucking fight, man. Like, crazy.
I mean, you're hitting all the points I was going to make, of course. First of all, Rąbecki is certainly one of my favorite fighters to watch, hands down. I mean, the fact that this guy has no quit in him, you will have to kill this guy to get him out of that cage at any given time, and very rarely does he actually get killed. He will zombie his way to a decision no matter what. Grant Dawson does not bring that type of war to him, first of all. Second of all, you brought up Miktabek Orlbai. I mean, that tracks tremendously with what you can expect from Grant Dawson. He's bringing a war to a fighter who generally wants to go in there and grapple, wrestle you down, get you down to the ground, make it a very long, drawn out ground game fair. Mateusz Rąbecki did not allow that with a better fighter in Miktabek Orlbai. So that goes to Rąbecki's case there. The third thing, and you also brought this fight up, the Manuel Torres fight. Not only did Grant Dawson get knocked out in that fight, but if you go back, we talked about it on this very show. You go back and rewatch the sequence that led up to that fight. Manuel Torres basically tracked the movement of Grant Dawson. Had he's got a very defined the setup to his shot. We all we know you kind of know the basic fundamentals of how he gets that shot going. All he had to do was size up Grant Dawson, see where the movement was, wait for the shot, and land the shot, and it was donezo. I'm not saying that Rombechki is going to be that methodical about it, but if that sequence that I just laid out there was a success for Manuel Torres, then a steamroller coming at your face is going to give you all kinds of problems that you're nowhere near anticipating if you were able to be set up in a trap like that.
100%. So you're
So,
going Rebechki?
yeah, I have to, man. I mean, Grant Dawson, he's great with the wrestling and it's very impressive. He racked up a very nice record for himself with it. But I don't you compared him to Sean Brady. I think that there are levels to this game. And even though they are similar, I would say that Sean Brady does what Grant Dawson does better than Grant Dawson.
Oh, okay. I like it.
All right. Well, you don't have to agree with it, but that's my thought anyway. All right. Moving on here. Jim Miller. Jim fucking Miller is fighting Jared Gordon. No hit by car Jared Gordon this time. He is not going to have any compromises to his legs. No running over of tires, Chase. What are you thinking here?
I mean, from what I've seen in the last few performances from Jim Miller, I mean, is not necessarily the greatest fighter of all time. It's a compelling fighter. It's the old man, it's Unk still doing it kind of deal. I would hate to put I would hate to tell everybody out there that Jim Miller's going to win this fight just because he's kind of got the GM3 thing. He's very slow. He's very slow at this age. Bobby Green whooped his ass. He had another fight after that against Chase Hooper or some shit like that.
Oh, yeah. That's where they try to have the cast slicer and everything.
Yeah, see, it's whatever. Jared Gordon didn't look horrible after he got hit by a car, I guess. Like, what can you say there? But I don't know.
That's literally what I could say there is that the guy got hit by a car and still held his own in a fight.
Yeah, so I'm
Against
gonna
Rafa Torres or Rafa Garcia, who just now got a masterclass performance against Alexander Hernandez, who was on a win streak, knockout streak.
I'm sold. I love it. Good deal.
I mean,
Yeah.
there you go. A kind of tip in the hand, but I mean, yeah, Jared Gordon is people. Again, we talked about it with Volkov. This man was robbed in the Paddy fight, in a fight that could have changed the trajectory of the entire sport. Justin Gaethje, who just beat Paddy Pimblett, is fighting on the White House card. Now, that could have been Jared Gordon in those rankings. That could have been Jared Gordon being amongst all of this. You know what I'm trying to get at here. Now, granted, they probably would have treated him like Connie Barcelos, but that's besides the point. Does not matter. The point is that this man was a single judge away from changing everything that the current paradigm has to offer. Jared Gordon is not a bad fighter. He is a victim of circumstance to a certain degree. Car crash included, car running over included, I would say.
I really think you're cooking. I want to take Jared Gordon here because I don't want to take the 42-year-old man, but everything that you're saying actually does track. He did beat Paddy. He did beat Paddy. So
yeah, and look, Jim Miller is good at jumping a gilly on a dude who is unsuspecting of it, that kind of thing. But I don't think that Jared Gordon is the type of guy. Like Jim Miller should be fighting fucking Santiago Ponzinibbio. You know what I mean? Obviously in a different way. You know what I'm saying? That type of fighter. Like he should not be fighting dudes that are so actively out here, like racking up some level of wins, still actively like pursuing some level of greatness, even though Jared Gordon is 37 years old. I think that this is a fight that is unfortunately not going to go Jim Miller's way. And not for nothing, man. Jim Miller is 42. It's probably, I know you're the Iron Man and I love it. I'm a huge fan of Jim Miller. I want him to continue to fight as long as he feels it's appropriate, but you got to know that at a certain point, you're going to start racking up the losses if you continue down that road.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess Jared Gordon it is then, eh?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely taking him. Yeah.
All right. Let's keep the train of movement here. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Roman Kopylov is rounding out the early prelims against Marco Tulio, two people who were rather highly touted at a time and are now rounding out, or, being the featured early prelim at this point. What do you think about this?
I think once again, I would love to take Marco Tulio, aka Eddie Guerrero. Shut up, Vitz. But I gotta go with Roman Kopylov. He did let me down against Paulo Costa, but RoboCop is very good. We know that. And Paulo, on the other hand, I am starting to come around to see how the style could be hard to win against. You know, you got to have a really solid game plan. Hell, he fucking 50-45 Sean Strickland, whatever the fuck he got on that judge's scorecard. But Roman Kopylov, Marco Tullio, I think Marco Tullio got a big step up of competition against Christian Leroy Duncan and got shut down instantly. I don't think Roman Kopylov is going to be able to do just that, but he has the experience and he has a very solid striking game that I think Marco Tullio, he's very creative and he's going to have to try to get himself, you know, in a flow before he really starts tuning up. But I think Kopylov's just going to be able to stay on the outside, left body kick, 1-2, stand on the outside, left body kick. Like, I think he'll just be able to have a systematic breakdown. It's not going to be the bells and whistles that Christian Leroy Duncan had, but it should be a win nonetheless. I would take Kopylov here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Marco Tullio, and I'll tell you why. Roman Kopylov impressed me early on in his career with exactly what you just described. He's a dude who he's not super dynamic, but he's very good at staying in the fight and reacting to what he's getting back. But the problem that I have seen over the course of his career now, and especially in these last couple of fights, is that he's just not doing it at a level that I think is of the caliber that he once displayed earlier on in his career. To be perfectly honest, I feel like this is a guy. I literally kind of set this up with this. This is a regression for both of these guys. You know, I mean, Tulio to a lesser extent because he's a little bit newer to the organization, but certainly for Kopylov, you know, being on the early prelims. I mean, this is a main card guy. It was a main event guy at one point. Remember last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, we're going from main event to early prelims. That is a tremendous backslide, and I think it is very warranted. Tulio being on the earlier part of his career, granted, you know, taking a pretty solid loss in his last fight for sure. He's got ground to make up, but I think that his dynamicness, his dynamism, perhaps could be something that'll get the better of Kopylov, especially if it goes into later rounds. Kopylov does not seem to pose much of a knockout threat in recent time as well, which is very concerning to me in a fight like this. I would say that Tulio, not necessarily a kill or be killed guy, but we do know that he has good shots to the body that could be a difference maker, and some decent power in his hands. I would say maybe not always a knockout guy, but enough to swing me a little bit on his side. I think that Kopylov has just let me down one too many times right now. He could win this fight and regain my trust here, but right now I'm going to put it into Marco Tullio on this one.
All right, all right. We're split on this one. I like this one. I think Roman Kopylov's he's gonna come out here and shock the world.
I hope so. And like I said, you know, make a believer because there's a reason you're on the early prelims right now. Give me a reason to in my mind, not make it so that it's right that you're there, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Next up, why this fight is so low on the card is beyond me. This is Pat Sabatini versus William Gomez. I mean, this fight should be at least main card, I would say. Maybe not main card, at least featured prelim. What are you making faces for? Pat Sabatini is okay. You know what? Let me start this one off then because you're making faces at me over here. Pat Sabatini, I said this, somebody asked me about this fight on one of the watch alongs, and I said this. Pat Sabatini is a dude that for some reason the world has this perception of him like he is not an elite wrestler that uses it very well in an MMA application. That is what he is. He has proven that now several times. Granted, some of his earlier losses may taint that a little bit, but we have been seeing great things out of Pat Sabatini. William Gomez, on the other side, making a little bit of a believer out of me in his last fight. I've always been skeptical of this guy. This is also the guy that overcut weight and had to be taken off of a card. That still sticks out in my mind as a weird instance that's kind of associated with him. Either way, last performance was very good. Dude representing France, still a developing nation in the sport. Put the two of those together based on the dynamics that they have. This is a good fight in the making right here. And I think that this should be one that Pat Sabatini gets the praise that he freaking deserves over here. I do not understand where this perception of 21-5 Pat Sabatini comes from with people. This is a better fighter than people give him credit for.
I think this fight specifically, nothing about Pat. You know, Pat's fine, cool, good on him. I mean, he got starched by Diego Lopez in one round, so that should tell you how
And
good
where is Diego
is.
Lopez fighting next?
But I hear you. But the point that I'm making is this fight does not belong on this card. This could be in the Apex. This could be
Oh my
anywhere
God.
else but here. I'm not going to lie to you.
You don't think it
Because
belongs in the early prelims of a pay-per-view or a numbered event?
this is fine here. This is fine here, but it's just this fight specifically. Like, who's the star that they're selling here? You know,
Pat
like,
Sabatini.
fair, sure. But William Gomi, is not very exciting,
Right.
but he is a very consistent mixed martial artist. Now, I don't know if I want to believe that he's going to be able to do what he does for 3 rounds, because in the last fight with Pat Sabatini, I saw how good he was, and I thought to myself, damn, Diego Lopez is fucking crazy. But Pat Sabatini actually looked very, very good. William Gomi was on a very long win streak up until his loss to Hyder Amil, which arguably, if you were judging it a certain way,
Yeah.
unanimous decision. But William Gomi really, it's a crazy win streak if you really want to think about it. I think it was like 12 fight win streak, and he beat Joe Anderson Brito. Uh, I,
Like that tracks anymore.
I agree. I agree. I'm hearing you. He beat Francis Marshall, Giannis Gamori. That one's a horrible one to even bring up. But, the point is, I I've seen Pat Sabatini look horrible, where he gets finished, and then I've seen him look great. William Gomi, from everything that I've seen, I don't love it. I don't love it, not one bit, especially being on a numbered event, because it's going to be a boring fight with William Gomi in it. But he is going to do the William Gomi thing for 3 rounds and beat Pat Sabatini.
All right. Okay. I'm glad we are split on this one. I will take my point. I mean, who knows? I mean, look, you could be correct about this. Like I said, William Gomi is a dude who surprised me in his last fight. Somebody who I never had much stock in. I never really thought that he was UFC caliber. Again, French guy. Of course, I'm not trying to disrespect the French. We're just saying that they're a developing nation. They're just now starting to get people like Perez Zayam coming in that are putting on for them. BSD, obviously, but that's a little bit of a unique case. He's never been a dude who I've considered in the upper echelon. I would put him underneath Morgan Charrier, maybe up until recently. So that being said, he did surprise me in his last performance. So could that happen? Sure, I will allow for that. But I think my dude Pat Sabatini is going to come out here and wrestle fuck him into oblivion.
In 2016, Morgan submitted William Gomi for his second professional loss by heel hook. So there you go.
And look where we are now. Perhaps he learned from that loss to the Pirate.
There you go.
All right. Well, so you're sticking with it?
I'm going William Gomi. Yep.
All right. I like it. Okay, next up. Again, crazy that these are early prelims here, but this is Baisangor Susurkayev versus Jordan Santos. Of course, Susurkayev, the buddy of main event star Hamzat Chimaev.
Jordan Santos is the guy who lost to Ozzy Diaz. The reason Ozzy Diaz has an opportunity against the table is because of this guy. Ozzy Diaz and this guy put up a very boring, not very good fight.
Yep.
Sursakayev's got all the hype. I mean, he's a little too cocky for his own good, but Jordan Santos is pretty on the feet. He sets up a lot of feints. That's what I will say. That's very good about him. His hands are moving. He's always doing this shit.
Yeah. He's got a weird awkwardness to him.
But Sursakayev, I think, is going to have a little more confidence than the average person. Like, oh, he's going to go in here and finish Jordan Santos is in his mind. So it's going to be a pretty good performance, I would say. Jordan Santos might be tougher than we expect from him, but I would not be surprised if Sursakayev finishes him. So I'm going to take Sursakayev, and this is an easy pick in my opinion.
This is another setup fight. I mean, look, how many times we literally were just talking about the Rahiki fight. This is not that, of course. Obviously, Santos comes up through the Contender Series, all of that. But how many times do we need these records to be padded out with these types of fights is what I'm trying to say here, because Susurkayev is a dude who is, I would say, too cocky for his own good. I think he is setting himself up later on for a downfall, but it's not going to be here. These are the exact type of fights that end up with a 15-0 record, a 17-0 record later on down. You're like, whoo, this guy must be cooking. And then you look at who he fought and how it was all concluded that he got to this point.
4-2 Ali Schmid.
This is what I'm saying here. So, I mean, Jordan Santos is the exact patsy for this exact type of situation. Now, granted, he does bring a unique, somewhat unique style, as we've mentioned, to this fight. So it'll be a little bit more of a puzzle, perhaps, for Susurkayev. And if he fights the way that he always does, basically going in there and fucking jackassing his way through round one, then yeah, maybe this gets into round two, but eventually he'll lock in. Eventually he'll get this win, and eventually he'll be sitting there in the middle of the cage with that shit-eating grin on his face yet again, thinking that he is the next greatest fighter on the planet just because the organization keeps giving him Jordan Santos's.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of like Sursakayev. We have a lot of different characters in these days, and I certainly like him more than a Hokit. So his in cage antics don't frustrate me, is what I would say.
I mean, if we're judging on the scale of like, fucking Drew Dober to Josh Hokett, then yeah, I'd put him closer to a liked position than that. But yeah, I'm certainly not a fan of this guy. Again, I think that he is sailing his way to a fraud check at some point, but it ain't today.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right. And starting this card off, Mr. Clayton Carpenter is back and he is going up against Peru's own Jose Ochoa. What are you thinking?
And this goes back to a few weeks ago, when we talked, or it was last week, whatever, when we talked about Francis Marshall. These guys, one, I get them confused all the time. Clayton Carpenter, Francis Fire Marshall, whatever you want to say. One's flyweight, one's featherweight. But the problem is they're too clean cut of fighters. They have too much of the image that is not, it doesn't separate them, and their fighting style does exactly just that. Go ahead.
I was going to say they manufacture these guys in like a factory and pump them out into the UFC. Generic white guy fighter.
Exactly. So Clayton, I said this about, you're just gonna have to. There's gonna be a fight where you're gonna have to get dirty, and we're gonna have to figure out if you were gonna be the dude who fights through adversity, or if you were a dude who gets finished. Josh Jose Ochoa is actually a really chaotic fighter. I mean, when it comes to threats, I mean, this dude is a very threatening striker. I mean, he's running at you full speed, throwing elbows, knees, and it's going to be a lot for Clayton to overcome. This is a scary fight for him to take. So I hope he's ready to actually have to, go through adversity, because I think that's really what's going to have to happen. I mean, if you look at what happened with Lonnie Kavanaugh against Ochoa, I mean, he was bloody as hell. I mean, it was just one cut on the forehead, but it was it was a bloody war. The first time that Lonnie's probably ever bled in a fight. So, is Clayton Carpenter really going to be up for the task at hand here? And I just don't think so. I think Ochoa is going to get this done.
All right. I mean, the only thing I would say about Ochoa, and this is not even really specific to him, is just that we've watched FFC on the channel, and we've also watched Inca FC on the channel. Both of those are Peruvian organizations. There is a lot of talent in Peru. However, Peru in the UFC has been, I would class as somewhat underwhelming. And I don't fully understand why that is as far as who they're bringing over from Peru and why they're not having the success in the organization that they might have in their home regions. Perhaps it's still just a developing market as far as the the US audience goes or whatever. I can't necessarily put like a finger on that specifically, but Peru sticks out to me as like kind of a knee-jerk reaction when I see a Peruvian flag only because of what I have seen out of other Peruvian fighters. I don't think that I class Jose Ochoa in that same category necessarily. I think that he is better than that assessment would lead one to believe. And Clayton Carpenter, I just don't think is a dude who gets gritty enough. It kind of goes to that point that you're making. I mean, these are like the fights that end up testing people when it comes to, what level you actually want to put into these fights. Like how much effort are you willing to go to actually gain a win? Clayton Carpenter in some of these fights that I've seen him win in basically like seems like he feels like he can kind of just coast his way to victories at times, and that's always frightening to me. It's like there are certain fighters that make it look easy. There are other fighters who think it's going to be easy, and I think that is a problem that I've seen out of Carpenter. So for that reason, I want to go with Jose Ochoa. I think that might be the way to go on this one. And if Clayton Carpenter wants to change my mind about that, go out there and make this a fight that you look like you actually definitively want to win, because I don't feel like I've seen it just yet.
Yes, 100%. Now, this will be a good fight. I really like this to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will find out who wins all of these fights this weekend when UFC 328 takes place. And of course, you can watch these fights along with us individually on our individual watch alongs. You can find me at youtube.com/@YamaShow. And Chase, I know you can tell them where they can find you.
You guys can find me on youtube.com/AskTPSmalls, watch it on Saturday, and of course Friday morning we will be watching One Championship. So just don't make sure to not miss that one. Excuse me.
Absolutely. And also make sure that you are keeping an eye on Chase's channel for his card breaks that he does. If you are interested in UFC tops cards, trust me, I was someone who wasn't interested in them before I started watching Chase's streams, and it has made a big fan out of me. So keep an eye out for those because those are always very entertaining.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, they new stuff coming, so just be ready. Tops are getting very intricate around here.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook at Yama Show this week. And these next couple of weeks might be a little bit stretched thin for your boy. I'm going to try to keep the content coming as consistently as possible, but bear with me for a little while because great things are coming on the other side of this stretch. Either way, guys, we appreciate all of you who have been hanging out with us for this one. All of you who always support. The support is tremendous and we appreciate it greatly. You guys have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week. And as always, fight on.